Hello everybody, this is Llodg, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about how much Combat Evolved's campaign holds up after all of these years. The first Halo came out in November of 2001 for the original Xbox, and later for PCs. Then, 10 years later after that, 343 Industries remastered the classic for the Xbox 360. And this is basically the version that is being used for the Master Chief Collection, and the version you'll be seeing in this video. First, I want to talk about the controls. In 2001, there were very few first-person shooters on home consoles, and those shooters usually took place only indoors and with a controller that did not have two control sticks. So this game had a right to feel outdated 20 years later, but magically, Halo Combat Evolved feels perfectly fine today. The developers over at Bungie were able to create gameplay that still feels perfect today, which is almost unbelievable, but they did it so well. However, of course, there'd be some room for improvement, like how vehicle controls feel almost like you're always on ice and they slip and slide everywhere. It might just be me, but pretty much every single vehicle in the game just does not feel right, and that could be because of what Bungie did in their future games to make vehicles control much better. I don't know, I just think with how good Master Chief controls, it is a little surprising that vehicles do not control as nicely as he does. And now to talk about the weapons that appear in the game. Unlike future Halo titles, almost all the weapons in this game hold their own place in the sandbox. So every weapon is able to feel fairly unique to one another. The only downside of this is if a certain weapon does not appear in a level and you like to use this weapon a lot, it can make that level seem kind of like a struggle to get through. And just like Master Chief's controls, all of these weapons feel so good to use and shoot your enemies. Also, all the weapons have really cool designs. Some of them feel like military weapons that are 500 years of advancements, and others just feel really alien. I mean, one of the Covenant weapons shoots needles when they hit their target and they explode. However, since this is the first game in the series, there are some weapons that actually appear in the game, but only enemies can use them in the campaign, such as energy swords and field rod guns. But yeah, all the weapons in the game are really fun to use, and each of them have their own uses, so none of them feel like padding or add fluff to the game to make it seem bigger than it actually is. Now the third thing I want to talk about was the story in this campaign. It is relatively simple, especially in 2001. There weren't many games that weren't RPGs that had such a grand feeling story like Halo does. I mean, it starts out with just fighting aliens that were chasing your ship. Then as you crash land on alien ring world and keep finding aliens on their own ships to save a captain, and then learning that the ring world is actually a weapon, but not the kind of weapon that would help in a war. And then you learn that there's a parasite on the ring, and it can only truly be stopped if...
The only way to stop the Flood is to starve them to death. And that's exactly what Halo is designed to do. Wipe the galaxy clean of all sentient life. You don't believe me? Ask him.
Is it true?
More or less. Technically, this installation's pulse has a maximum effective radius of 25,000 light years. But once the others follow suit, this galaxy will be quite devoid of life. Or at least any life with sufficient biomass to sustain the Flood.
Yeah, this game takes a lot of twists and turns. It could have been really similar to Doom in that you just need to fight aliens to survive and stuff. But I appreciate the levels they went through to make the campaign feel more interesting with each cutscene. And with talking about the cutscenes, we need to talk about the great voice cast that was able to give so many of these now well-known characters a life. I mean, they were able to voice these characters so well that characters who return in later games keep the same voice actors. I am very surprised Bungie was able to get so many good voice actors for this game. Steve Downes and Jen Taylor, who voiced both the main characters, really give them a lot of life, even though one of them is basically a machine and the other an AI. Oh, and there are so many good lines throughout the cutscenes, some of which really give interesting and mysterious lines.
You already knew that. I mean, how couldn't you? Why would you hesitate to do what you've already done?
And others give some nice banter between two characters.
This thing is falling apart.
It'll hold.
We're not gonna make it.
We'll make it.
Pull up! Pull up! You did that on purpose, didn't you?
Oh, and I know I already talked about some weapons designs earlier, but I just wanted to say that all of the designs in general are really good. Like Grunts, good design. Elites, good design. Probably the best ever design for them. Master Chief, okay, I like his later incarnations better, but this one is still really good. The Halo ring, it's a...
Man, we let those dumb bugs out to the middle of nowhere to keep them from getting their filthy claws on Earth. But we stumbled onto something that's so hot for that they're scrambling over each other to get it. Well, I don't care if it's God's own anti-son of a bitch machine or a giant hula hoop. We're not gonna let them have it. What we will let them have is a belly full of lead and a pool of their own blood to drown in. Am I right, Marines? Sir, yes, sir! Damn right I am.
It'll be difficult to find some design in this game that I outright hate. Oh, and I can't believe it took me so long to talk about the actual gameplay, fighting against the main enemies, the Covenant. They are so interesting. Each class in their army acts differently and actually reacts to what the player does. Like if there's an elite and a pack of grunts and the player kills the elites, the grunts will start to run away, and just simple stuff like that makes the game so replayable since every encounter can be played out differently based on what you do. Oh, and I love how each species is just so different from each other in terms of looks. It's just really easy to tell what you're about to get into. Oh, it's also cool how each enemy will kind of have certain weaknesses to a weapon, like Sentinels will go down with a plasma rifle, while with a Hunter, you can just use a sniper rifle or a pistol to one-shot them. And now onto some of the things I dislike in this game. The whole saving cabinet keys thing is dumb. Okay, I really like the concept of infiltrating an alien ship and saving Marine prisoners, but why did they allow the person you were supposed to save die? On harder difficulties, this can be really annoying since it can actually take them a while to actually follow you and do what you want to do to avoid enemies. Oh well. Oh, and also they let Johnson die too. This game just loves letting you kill characters no one wants to actually kill. Library is also kind of a dumb in concept. Just let me grab the key or teleport me to the end. The Flood aren't as fun to fight as the Covenant is, it's just more shoot them as they approach you. Oh, and the vehicle controls are just not as good as in future games. But hey, it was the first time they did it. There were bound to be some mistakes. I guess it makes sense why a lot of these problems do not reappear in future games. And that basically is my review of Halo Combat Evolved. Despite some of my gripes with the game, this game is really amazing and honestly surprising. It is still so good after 20 years of brand new games and even generations. If you haven't played this game yet, I wholeheartedly recommend trying it out on the Master Chief Collection. 343 is even re-implementing the original graphics that were lost in the Gearbox PC port, and I think if you give this game a shot, you'll really like it. And I'm sure I missed some parts to talk about in this game, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day. Goodbye. Hello everybody, this is Llodg, and I am back again with my series of talking about how every Halo game holds up so many years later. And today I am talking about the 2004 sequel, Halo 2. And for this video, I'm going to be mainly talking about Halo 2 Anniversary, which is a part of the Master Chief Collection, which came out all the way back in 2014. And yeah, like how I did my How Did Combat Evolved Hold Up video, I'm only going to be talking about the campaign, not the multiplayer. But anyways, let's get into the video. Oh, also, I will be kind of spoiling the game, so if you don't want to hear spoilers, stop watching. Halo 2 takes place pretty much directly after Halo CE, and with some cool cutscenes to show how much of a celebrity Master Chief and Johnson are. And yeah, Bungie decided to fully upgrade Johnson to an actual character in this game instead of just like a sergeant who would appear in some of the missions and the occasional cutscene. I gotta say, I'm glad they promoted him. And instead of just showing the human side of the story, Bungie decided to also show off the Covenant. I love this addition to the game. I think it adds so much to the game since we can learn about the Covenant from an inside point of view. In Halo 2, for about like half the missions, you play as the Arbiter, and he's basically the guy who was in charge of the Covenant force that was with you on Installation 04 in Combat Evolved, the same Halo ring that we blew up at the end. And while it turns out that Halo ring was very important to the Covenant, so the Arbiter is stripped of his rank and seen as a heretic, and his life is basically ruined. Until the Prophets, basically the religious and actual leaders of the Covenant, call him to make him the Arbiter. Basically the Prophet's sword, and the Arbiter will have to do anything that the Prophets actually want him to do. And then we actually get to play as him to go fight heretics on our forward station that forwards the planet from the last game. And then we learn that the Prophets are basically replacing the elites with brutes who were introduced in this game, and we get to fight in the Covenant Civil War, and man, that is so cool. And then the Master Chief basically does the same stuff he did in the last game. You know, I'm kind of making it sound bad, even though it's really not, but when half the game is going in such different and interesting direction, it can be weird to have the other half of the game basically take you through the same motions without any real divergence. though luckily I think Bungie did the best thing they could for this. After having you get to play as the Arbiter, the game will like kind of switch back between the two, so when playing through the game, each level can kind of act as a palate cleanser for the last, with one level being like all that a religious group falling apart, and then the next level is just trying to kill some aliens like you did in the last game. But I didn't really want to start this video on a negative note, because I think this game is really good. I may go as far as to say that this is my favorite Halo campaign in the series so far. Well, I guess I should talk about the gameplay, huh? Much like the last game, the gameplay feels really good to control, and this time I actually want to use the vehicles the game gives me. And since this is a sequel, we now have some more things we can do, such as dual wielding, which is so important to the gameplay that they decided to have Master Chief showcase it on our front cover art. And it's a pretty cool feature. With some of the smaller weapons like needlers and the pistols, you can hold two of them and shoot with both triggers to give you like a faster fire rate. Oh, and you can't melee or throw grenades without dropping one of the weapons. And I honestly don't use this too often. Something I do often is the vehicle boarding, which allows you to jump onto an enemy controlled vehicle and either throw a grenade in it or punch them out. And I gotta say that feature feels so much more at home than dual wielding does in this game. But yeah, like I said, this game feels so great to play, and there are so many times you can sequence break. Like in the second level, you can grenade jump up to this building and start walking through the city, basically skipping all the enemies. And yeah, this game just doesn't take place on a Halo ring and a few ships like the last game. You start on a human space station above Earth, go into one of the Earth cities in Africa, then go to the Forerunner structure that was near the Halo ring from the last game, then go on a brand new Halo ring called Delta Halo, which, just like the last game's Halo ring, has so many different areas that are visually different from each other. And finally, you even go into the Covenant's home base, Dreadnought thing. High Charity. Yep, so if you don't like one of the locations that much, you can basically wait a mission and it'll probably change. And I'm glad Delta Halo doesn't look like an exact copy of Alpha Halo from Combat Evolved. It really lets the game create its own identity from the precursor. Though talking about the levels, there are a few times where it feels like the levels were split in half. Like you'll be going through a level and then it'll just end, then the next level will start with a cutscene, and it's like, oh, this could have been just one long level, and I'm assuming Bungie just was like, oh, these levels are too long, let's cut them in half. It doesn't really matter, but I guess it accounts for Halo 2 having like almost the most levels in the game, other than like Halo 5. It's just a small nitpick for someone who had to let's play through the games, but yeah. Halo 2 also added a lot more weapons, and since you can now play as the elites without any humans around, there are a lot more weapons for the Covenant to fill in the roles that were filled by only human weapons. And they even let us use weapons that were previously unusable in Halo Combat Evolved, like the Fuel Rod Cannon and the now iconic Energy Sword. And I'm really glad that when you first play as the Arbiter, you get to use this weapon as soon as possible. It's like Bungie knew everyone wanted to use this the first time they saw their Marines die by the Energy Sword. But sadly, adding in all these like Covenant weapons does make each weapon and the sandbox feel a little less unique. But I feel like it gave the developers more freedom to play certain weapons and levels, and give players the choice of choosing which weapon they like to go with, for instance like the sword or shotgun. Weapons that are very similar but have their ups and downs, though there were also some weird exclusions. For example, the assault rifle is basically replaced by the SMG, and it's weird to think that in a different timeline the assault rifle is never brought back after this, but luckily after this game it'll always be in all the games. They did change how some of the weapons work, like the pistol in this game is vastly different than how it was in CE. This game also really expands on a lot of things that were in CE. You see a lot more of the Covenant, like the religious city, we see more of 343 Guilty Spark in another monitor, and we see the Gravemind for the first time, which is what Captain Keyes would have become if we didn't kill him in CE. Oh yeah, we also get a lot more information on like the UNSC as a whole. Come at the bottom, we also saw like the crew of the Pillar of Autumn, but now we see characters such as Lord Hood, even Captain Keyes' daughter, Miranda Keyes. And Miranda Keyes is pretty cool in this game, and doesn't have a level where she can die over and over again, like her father. And this is the first game that we now see the Master Chief's like now iconic armor. And it's kind of weird to me that I changed it after just one game, but I gotta say, I'm really glad they made this change, because I love the armor in this game. And do you remember how I said I like the Combat Evolved cutscenes? Well, I think the cutscenes in this game are amazing. And yes, the cutscenes you've been seeing throughout the video are the Anniversary Edition produced by Blur, but it's not like they're massively changing what the characters are doing. But I gotta say, I just absolutely love the Blur cutscenes. And I kind of wish they would redo all of the previous games cutscenes in this style, but whatever. And the voice actors are amazing in this game. There are returning actors such as Steve Downes as Master Chief and Jen Taylor as Cortana, but there are also some new actors in this game, such as Keith David as the Arbiter, and man, I just gotta say, I love the acting in this game. All the voices just fit their characters so well. Also in this game, like I said before, the cutscenes in this game are just amazing and very cinematic. I mean, look at some of these shots. And on top of that, I think the game has some of the most quotable lines out of all the Halo games.
Sir, permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
For a brick, he flew pretty good.
Is that?
I am a monument to all your sins.
Tartarus, stop.
Impossible.
Put down the icon.
Put it down and disobey the Hierarchs?
There are things about Halo even the Hierarchs do not understand.
Take care, Arbiter. What you say is heresy.
Is it? Oracle, what is Halo's purpose?
Collectively, the seven.
Not another word.
Please. Don't shake the light bulb.
Soon the great journey shall begin. But when it does, the weight of your heresy will stay your feet, and you shall be left behind.
Thanks for the tank. He never gets me anything.
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
Oh, also there were a few times when like the NPC allies will say stuff like the elites. I didn't realize this on like a first playthrough, but playing it again throughout the last year, it's like, oh, the elites will notice when like their allies will die. It's just like, oh, I love this. That we don't really see in other Halo games. And the only downside of the cutscenes are that there are a lot of times when I wish I could have played like that as a part of the game, but it's just a cutscene. Good thing I'm able to punch this alien. Yep, I always think of Halo 2 as the boss fight game, and I remember liking a lot of the boss fights. But coming back to this game, a lot of them are honestly kind of underwhelming. Either just killing regular enemies to start the next cutscene, punching an alien for him just to teleport and you have to run to him to punch him again, and finally waiting for Johnson to shoot Tartarus' shields down just so you can kill him. And yeah, Halo 2 once again gives us a series first to actual named villains. We aren't just fighting kind of like a faceless alien force. We have the three prophets, but mostly the Prophet of Truth, the Gravemind, and Tartarus. I think giving us actual characters that we can go against and hate while we fight was a great thing. And now that I'm talking about one of the main brutes, I should probably talk about the new species that were introduced in this game, the brutes and the drones. The brutes are basically what their human given name sounds like. They're brutes. They're big Wookiee-like creatures that when you kill a lot of their squad or hurt them, they will rage, similar to how the hunters will. And the drones are just super annoying. But I don't really mean that in a bad way. They'll come at you from all angles and make you have to quickly change your strategy since they can fly around and are overall hard to hit. I think they fit well in the game. But the brutes don't really shine until the elites are gone, and basically fill in the role that the elites had, but whatever. Okay, now what haven't I talked about? The music. The music is once again great in this game, and the anniversary music is also great. In this game, they decided to have a guitar be like the main instrument, and I love it, and I wish more Halo games would feature the electric guitar more prominently. And I kind of really like Halo 2's music, because it's very different. Like of course there's like the Mjolnir mix, or yes, it's like the main theme of Halo. But there's also a lot of tracks that you don't hear often, and I feel like it gives Halo 2 its own identity, while not being like Halo 4 and Halo 5 where it's too different. The only negative thing I gotta say about the music is that in the Master Chief Collection, when you switch to the original graphics, the music is super low, and I would like to hear it, like some of the differences, or like Breaking Benjamin. Like, come on 343, raise that music up. But yeah, the music is great in this game, which I think I'll be saying for all the Halo games. And yeah, you can probably tell from the cliffhanger ending, but this game originally wasn't finished, and it's honestly a surprise that it's as good as it is because of how rushed it was. And I'm kind of surprised at how you honestly can't tell how rushed it is by today's standards. I mean, there are a few things like the ending, which man, am I glad I wasn't playing this game in 2004. I had to wait 3 years to find out what happened to Chief. But I'm still just wondering how Johnson got this scarab. Like, did I miss a cutscene? In one he's with Tartarus, and the next one he's got this giant weapon. It doesn't matter then, but I'm still confused about it. And yeah, if you're curious about Halo 2's development, we're still finding things out that were cut from the game by like modders and stuff. So I just gotta say, good on them, because learning about games history is super interesting, and seeing the game that we could have got is even more interesting. But yeah, I really like this game, and I honestly recommend it to anyone who liked Helmet Evolved and wants to play it. It's just more cinematic and really builds on what the previous game set up, and you should play the Master Chief Collection, since you also get the other games in that package too, and they actually recently released some fixes to Halo 2 to make it look closer to the original, so I think that's great. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day, and goodbye.
Hello everybody, this is Llodg, and today I am once again back to asking the age-old question:
How does this Halo game hold up after so many years? And today we are on to the classic Halo 3, which was originally released on the Xbox 360 all the way back in 2007. And just like my other two How Do These Halo Games Hold Up, I'll be talking about the MCC port of Halo 3, and that's the one you'll be seeing in the video. Though, other than a higher resolution and more frames, it is very similar to the original Xbox 360 game, since it sadly never technically got an Anniversary Edition. Well, anyway, let's get into the first next generation Halo game. Halo 3 takes place pretty much exactly after Halo 2, when we see the Forerunner ship without the Prophet of Truth and Master Chief run coming into the Earth's atmosphere, and we see something fall from it. It turns out that this was the Master Chief himself and crash lands into the jungle. And after Johnson's Marines find Master Chief and revive him, we finally see the two main characters from the previous games meet up for the first time. And Master Chief immediately tries to kill the Arbiter, and in this short interaction is all you're really going to get out of them. Just short moments between them really, nothing else, which is honestly kind of a shame. And if you didn't already know this, in Halo 3 you can only play as the Arbiter if you are player 2 in co-op, and I find this extremely disappointing since the Arbiter was the most interesting part of Halo 2's story for me. And this leads me to my biggest problem with Halo 3's campaign. It feels like an honestly step back from Halo 2. To me, Halo 3 feels more like a sequel to Halo Combat Evolved than it does to Halo 2. It's pretty much basic in its overall plot, though that's not to say Halo 3 is a bad game at all. Like I said, it just feels more basic. Anyway, in the previous games, you can only have two players play together in a campaign, and they would basically be copies of whoever player 1 was, and this is the first game to let these players be totally different characters from each other. Player 1 would be Master Chief, 2 would be the Arbiter, and 3 and 4 would be a Red and Blue Elite. I'm sure they have canon names, but I'm not sure what they are. And it's cool that every player is a different character, at least visually, to distinguish themselves from each other. However, these characters don't affect the story whatsoever, and in my playthrough of Halo 3, I did this for the channel. I only played the single player of Halo 3, and when playing single player, the Arbiter will come and go from your party, and in some missions even do something completely separate from the Master Chief. So what I'm trying to get at here is playing co-op kinda messes up the narrative of the game, which is kinda weird, but honestly, nothing game breaking whatsoever. Okay, before I talk about spoilers to this 15-year-old game, I'll talk about the overall gameplay. Halo 3 keeps almost all of, if not everything that was in Halo 2 in terms of add gameplay features so we can hijack vehicles and dual wield. However, to me, the dual wielding in this game felt like a holdover from Halo 2. Like, they didn't even have anything to make it interesting, but they felt that it needed to be there. And I think you can feel this, especially when dual wielding never makes a return in future games after this. The only noticeable things that Bungie did with it in Halo 3 were add some more guns that could be dual wield, and making sure you can't carry two needlers at the same time, because that was apparently too good. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of dual wielding if you haven't noticed by now, though sometimes I will dual wield and do a lot of damage, so who knows, maybe I should just use it more often, and every time I do that in my Halo mod videos, I always realize how good they are, so who kinda knows. Bungie also adds some equipment in this game, and the way it works in Halo 3 is that there are many different types of equipment that you can pick up, like a bubble shield, a drop shield, man that's a lot of shields, or you can just pick up a flare and blind yourself for a good old 30 seconds. Yeah, other than the shields, regeneration field, and invincibility, I don't really care for all the equipment all that much. I mean, in multiplayer, and I'm sure stuff like the radar jammer is useful, but in campaign, does it even affect the brutes at all, or is it just a practical joke for using it? I guess that the blue EMP thing is pretty useful, but equally harmful to the player. I also really like the Sentinel Helper one that you get in the final mission. It's also really cool when it turns on you after that event. Oh, something that I really like about the equipment in the game is that the brutes are also able to use pretty much all of it for themselves, so it can really change how certain battles turn out. Okay, I've mentioned the brutes a few times, so I should probably talk about the enemies of this game. Unless I'm forgetting something, the Covenant don't have any new types of enemies to add, but they keep all of them from Halo 2. Oh, except for the elites. They are on our side for now. The Flood really branched out this time by having the usual suspects, and there's also this big brute form, tank forms, I don't know the name. And there are these ones I call the Spider Sniper forms. I think they're pretty cool additions. The Sentinels sadly are the only ones to actually remove enemy types without adding anything new, unless we count the equipment and a certain boss. But I don't in this case. Overall, I think these enemies were really good in this game. I think you should expect that though, since we're 3 games into the series, so I'd hope Bungie would absolutely refine these enemies to the best they can be. I think the enemies are all fairly fun to fight, and nothing too annoying, though the Cyberjackals can sometimes go somewhere else sometimes, because man, those guys are annoying.
Okay, with that, I should probably talk about the story of this game, huh? Okay, so it starts out with Cortana talking about choosing a Spartan, and then we see Master Chief jump out of a ship from Halo 2 and crash land in the jungle in Africa for Johnson and the Marines to find him and wake him up. Then the Arbiter shows up and says we are friends now and let's stop Truth. So he fights through the jungle. You gotta save the captured Johnson because he got captured. Then we fly back to the Crow's Nest base on a Pelican. We finally see Miranda Keyes, and she's apparently in this game. And then Truth hacks us and does a call outpost, and then you basically play through the worst level in the game. Then, after refusing a bomb and riding an elevator out of there, you get to drive through African highways and figure out the Covenant are digging up something. And they have some really good digging tools, so we gotta hurry. Then Master Chief finds a Scarab, which is pretty cool, and drives around some rocket marines. Then he destroys an anti-air turret, so the UNSC can fly around. Finally, the Covenant dig up a portal to the sky, and all fly through it. But the humans and elites can't follow them because the flood crash land on Earth, and the Master Chief has to find out what's on the ship, so he literally goes through the whole last level, but backwards, and actually fights the flood. And when he finally reaches the ship, he finds Cortana, or rather a message Cortana sent, and also 343 Guilty Spark. Yep, he's also in this game too. Anyways, we take them both back to the Covenant ship after they start glassing Africa, and they leave Lord Hood behind to follow the Covenant through the portal to the Ark. And after basically 24 days of flying through the portal and exchanging lots of weapons, we drop down to a desert and go through lots of sand to see the Ford on the Dawn almost run us over and go through Forerunner ruins until we fight this Bruce Chieftain in an honestly pretty cool fight. Then we learn where Truth is and have one final effort to stop him, and this is honestly super cool and also one of the most iconic cutscenes with Pelicans and Phantoms painted green side by side to show how much the humans and elites are actually working together. And then once the Arbiter and Master Chief clear their towers, Johnson gets captured. Again. I think it's like the third time in the series and second time just in this game. Come on, Johnson, step it up, man. So we pick up the slack, and then the Flood come back, but this time in High Charity, and we fight through them until we gotta make it to where Truth is and have to fight two Scarabs. Then we walk in, and the Flood become our allies for a bit. Then while Truth tries to get Johnson and stuff, the Ring's Miranda Keyes comes in and just can't do what needs to be done, then gets killed by Truth anyway. Then Truth just makes Johnson activate the rings, which is like the second time in the series that this kind of thing has happened. Like, why don't you just do that to begin with? Anyway, we get to Truth and the Arbiter kills him, and we get to stop the rings. End of the game, right? Nope. The Gravemind turns on us, and we have to fight back through the Flood and find out that Alpha Halo got remade, and we'll use this to destroy the Flood on the Ark. But first, we gotta go save Cortana, so we do. Now for the final mission in this trilogy, we fight through with lots of flood up this tower while Johnson occasionally helps us out. Then we make it through the control room. 343 doesn't want to rush this game out, but Johnson makes him, so 343 shoots him with a laser. Then we kill 343 and Johnson goes out with a bang. Then we have to do a Warthog run and leave the ring in this cool segment, and then we make it to the ship, but it splits apart and the Arbiter gets back to Earth and the Master Chief and Cortana are stuck in space for seemingly ever. And that was the story of Halo 3, so yeah, not all that complicated, which is a shame because I like the more complex story that Halo 2 brought together. But hey, Halo 3 is pretty similar to CE in multiple ways, so it kinda works out in the end. And man, Halo 3 does a good job with one-liners.
Got an escape plan?
Thought I'd try shooting my way out. Mix things up a little.
You were weak. And gods must be strong.
I am Truth, the voice of the Covenant.
So, you must be silenced.
And some of the shots in the game are amazing too.
We hit these 3 generators, and the barrier will fall?
A small section, yes.
Good enough. Johnson, drop the chief at the first generator, then head to the third. The elites will punch right down the middle.
Roger that.
Charlie, Foxtrot. Tower 1 approach is active AAA.
Mayday! I can't control her!
Pelican down! Pelican down!
Brace yourselves, we're going in a little hot!
replacement. The ring you destroyed.
Okay, and I should probably talk about some of the character deaths. And yeah, some of them are fine, I guess, like 343 Guilty, Spark, and Truth makes sense because they are villains, and with them adds meaning to the story and then the world they're in. But like Johnson and Keyes, why did they have to die? I think in an interview or something, Marty said that they were added in for shock value, which in my opinion is like the worst way to add death to a story. And I get it, this was probably the last point in the timeline Bungie was ever going to touch, so to them it didn't really matter, but dang, it matters to me. And then I gotta say, I'm really glad that Bungie kinda left the ending up to potentially be continued instead of just ending it there. And I am glad that Halo did continue after Bungie. Okay, and now I'll talk about the graphics of Halo 3, because as you can tell, it holds up extremely well. I mean, this game came out in 2007, and the art style keeps the game looking so nice. And something that I will always love about Halo 3 are the mini skyboxes that just look amazing in this game. I mean, look at this one, you can see the Milky Way galaxy, and the skybox in the last Warthog run is just amazing. I mean, what else can you say? But something that I have to say, and it could just be because Halo 3, like Halo 2, was kind of rushed. I mean, some of the missions were even cut out of the game. But some of the few last cutscenes in the game, some of the backgrounds look extremely like paintings, and I'm sure it's because they didn't want to model out all this stuff. But I mean, especially this one, it looks like the Master Chief's flying a Banshee into an image. But at least the image looks good, you know? Also, this game doesn't have traditional boss fights like the other games, or even Halo 2, but it does have scarabs, and this one, Brute Chieftain, I guess, but I really want to talk about the scarabs and how good they are for boss fights. Unlike Halo 2, to beat a scarab, you don't have to kill all the elites that are driving it, you actually have to blow it up. And in the 3 occasions that you actually get to fight them, I think I handled them all in different ways, which is cool because it's just not point and shoot until it dies. You can have some fun with it and try to do different things every time. Like go back in the traditional way and punch the back, or fly up in a hornet, or blow up the legs to jump onto the scarab. They're just great enemies. Also, they don't have health bars that make you shoot at them forever, unlike some other first-person shooter bosses I won't name. Also, the explosions are really great too. And another thing I should probably talk about are the random times when Cortana and eventually the Gravemind will actually talk to you during gameplay in these like weird sequences, or I don't know if it's like Master Chief remembering what Cortana said, or if she's somehow like talking to him. But I don't like those sequences very much. I mean, I like the lines that they'll say, but they stop your gameplay for however long the line will go, and you can't even like walk fast. They'll literally put you down to a halt. And it's just so annoying, like just let me walk quicker, please. You don't have to stop the gameplay in the middle of it without even like a cool cutscene. It's just, oh man, you got all this blue stuff and these images flashing. Even though I like the lines that they say, I think they could have handled that in a much better fashion, and then it is obvious why they never tried to do something in the future games even like remotely like this. And I should probably say that the voice actors once again do an amazing job. Like Steve Downes, Jen Taylor, Keith David are back, and they're brilliant. They're all, I feel like, they do very well. But then I think the voice actors for Miranda Keyes and the Prophet of Truth have changed, but they also do very well. But overall, all the voice actors I feel do a very good job. And I don't know why I always wait until the last minute to talk about this, but the music is great in this game, just like the previous two. Now the last few game soundtracks had like one instrument. Halo CE had strings, Halo 2 had the electric guitar, and in Halo 3 it's the piano. And I think after this game, just hearing that one piano note really lets you know it's Halo. I mean, even in the E3 trailer for Halo Infinite, they had that one note playing and everyone got hyped. Also, some of the tracks on the OST are callbacks to the first game, but I gotta say it really works, and One Final Effort is just one of the best tracks in all of Halo, and I'm just wondering why it hasn't been redone in other games. And yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about with this game. Overall, pretty good, but honestly kind of lacking in some parts, more specifically the story and what they could have done with some characters, and also the Brutes having the biggest downgrade, like come on. But yeah, overall really fun and enjoyable time, and I can wholeheartedly recommend this game. It's one of the greats. And MCC is a great place to play it, so if you don't want to grab an original copy, play it on MCC. It's also on Steam. Oh, and you can let me know what you think of Halo 3 and maybe even some of the other Halo games. I will hopefully get to these games, to the future games in the future. We'll see, because this video took way too long for me to actually get out. But yeah, so thank you. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day, and goodbye. Hello everybody, this is Llodg, and today I'm here with another How Does This Halo game hold up after so many years with Halo 3 ODST, which originally released on the Xbox 360 all the way back in 2009. Yep, a Halo spin-off side story that used Halo 3's engine and many of its assets. There are some new elements and weapons, but it's mostly another Halo 3 campaign, but I don't think anyone would really complain about that. Like my previous Halo retrospectives, I'm going to be talking about and showing off the MCC version of ODST, which was actually given to me for free by 343 because of how much they messed up MCC's launch. So I guess this is one of those Brox receive for free things. I don't know, but I did go back and buy an ODST on the 360 store, so... And with that, let's get into the video. Halo 3 ODST starts off with an outline of how the war is going, spoiler alert, humanity is losing. And then we see the team of ODSTs talking about the mission at hand. And we see Buck, Mickey, Dutch, Romeo, and the newest member, Rookie. And oh, Veronica's also here, but she's an ONI agent, not an actual ODST. And yeah, you can probably guess by the title of the game, but instead of playing as a Spartan, we play as an ODST, which are the best soldiers that the UNSC had before the Spartans came around. And this marks the first time in a Halo game that we play as a human without actually playing as the Master Chief, which is pretty cool. And I'll go into the exact ways playing as an ODST differs in this game. Since you're an ODST instead of a Spartan or Elite, you don't have great cool space armor that has a shield. That's right, you just have some padding in your health to keep you alive. So kind of like Halo CE, there are some health packs scattered around the map, isn't too big of a deal. I mean, in Combat Evolved, if you have 1 health left, it was kind of over on the harder difficulties, but in this game, you do regen a little bit of it back. So the most annoying thing is when you have red all over your screen. But once again, I think it could have been a lot worse. And some of the more changes as an orbital drop shock trooper, you don't have a radar to see your enemies, and you can't dual wield since you are much weaker, and this marks the end of dual wielding actually being included in Halo games, for the player at least. There are some other differences, but they are more for world building / ease of access for this game, rather than what an ODST has versus Spartan, so I'll talk about that stuff a bit later. And I should probably talk about the setting and story for this game. So this game takes place right after the initial Covenant invasion of Earth in Halo 2. That's right, Halo 3 ODST takes place during Halo 2. Yeah, I'm sure that didn't confuse people. Anyways, so yeah, this entire game takes place in and around the city of New Mombasa. So unlike the previous games, we'll get to see some different locations on just one planet. And here, I'll give a brief rundown of the story. And yeah, spoilers ahead for the rest of the video, but I'm sure you already knew that. So we start on a ship with the ODST squad talking about dropping into the Covenant's assault on Earth. Then we see Veronica Dare, an ONI agent who is taking this team to do a super secret ONI mission. Then we finally drop, and Veronica wants us to not go directly into the fight until the Covenant cruiser jumps to Delta Halo and leaves a giant shockwave that blows all the drop pods across the city. As the Rookie, we wake up hours later to scour the city for anything, and yeah, for a lot of this game, you play as the Rookie while walking through the city at night and go to different objects. And once you get to these different objects, you play levels that are similar to the past game's levels as these different characters of the squad. So for a lot of the story, it goes as Rookie finds something, flashes someone from the squad doing something, and then back to Rookie and repeat. So most of the squad is separated, but as Buck tries to find Veronica, he finds Romeo. Dutch is in the zoo for a bit, but with no animals. Mickey gets a tank and works with New Mombasa police while also being with Mickey. Then we try to defend an ONI building, only for them to have it blow it up. And while they're on a Pelican leaving, they locate Buck and Romeo. After fighting with a roof chieftain on a skyscraper, Romeo gets hurt, and then they travel through the sewers with a Banshee and a Phantom. And before they are home free, Buck is somehow able to piece together where Dare might be, which is doing the actual mission they were supposed to do from the start. And this is where Rookie's and everyone else's timelines kind of link up, so as the Rookie go underground, find Dare, go past the nest of my least favorite enemies in Halo, and find a former Covenant engineer who is named Virgil. No, not that Virgil, though I wish. He apparently has information on the Covenant that could be vital to win the war against them, so we get him out, finally meet up with Buck, and have an epic drive out of the city while we see Earth getting glassed and see scarabs roaming around. And this ends in a final holdout fight until the Phantom arrives, and everyone lives happily ever after. Until this book comes out. Though before the game ends, we see fan favorite and definitely alive Sergeant Johnson talking to Virgil to figure out what they know, and Buck cleans a monkey. And yeah, that's essentially the whole story of ODST, though obviously a little shortened and without some of the side stuff that you can actually find within the game. Unlike the previous 2 games, the story is pretty well contained and grounded for a military versus space alien shooter, so nothing crazy really happens, though that's not to say there aren't cool things that happen in this campaign, it's just a little bit more grounded than the previous games. I did leave out the part about Buck and Veronica having like a past romance history / kiss at the end of the game, but honestly, I don't really care for this storyline all that much. To me, it doesn't really add much to the game, but I guess it does add to their whole history, which is kind of cool, I guess. But I have to talk about the rookie's involvement in the story before he meets up with Dare. It's just so weird because from our point of view, he picks up something, just looks at it, and then thinks about it, and then throws it into the ocean or something. And I think it's supposed to be Virgil or something leading to these points, but it's honestly kind of weird for me. And now I'll talk about the rookie's gameplay in this kind of hub world. So in the streets of New Mombasa, you have to walk around in the night and fight various enemies while also making your way to these points that will throw you into the actual levels. And you do have a waypoint system and I'll tell you where to go if you get lost. You also have this map feature and bio thing if you want to know more about the lore, about the game, city, and characters. But I'll be honest, I never really use these features at all. I guess if you want to know more, there is an in-game way to know more. Oh, and there is this visor mode that outlines enemies in red and brightens up your screen. Just don't use it when it's bright outside. Another thing that is in this hub world that lets you know more are these terminals that function similarly to how they did in Halo 3, except instead of reading, you get these audio logs that tell you some story about when the Covenant first started invading. And once again, I didn't really search out for this. I mean, I even got achievements that this was my first time finding them in my videos. And some of them sound so similar, so it's weird, but I guess they're there for you to find if you want to fully complete the game. After seeing a lot of the levels in the game, I'm sure you're wondering how much of the levels are actually taken from Halo 3 since it uses Halo 3's engines and some assets, and I'm happy to report that the levels are all new and have assets that you would have never have seen in the original Halo 3. And a lot of the levels are actually really cool in their setting, despite the game taking place in and around the city. There's a very good amount of variety in it. And some of the levels even have some interesting set pieces like flying a Banshee through the sewer and finding a scarab or walking along a construction site on a skyscraper in the sky. Though the levels can be fairly short, some of them take even less than 20 minutes to beat, which makes it one of the shorter Halo games if you count time, but I think it works for the better. Any more in the game could start to feel a little bit bloated. Now I'll talk about the weapons, and almost all of them come directly from Halo 3, who would have guessed, but there are two new weapons, the suppressed pistol and SMG, which sound exactly like how you would think they'd be. Similar weapons from before, except they don't make much noise, and you can also zoom them in, which is the return of the pistol zoom-ins ever since it was removed in Halo 2. Also, I'm not sure if there is a stealth mechanic in this game that you would want to use these weapons, but they are silenced. Also, unless I'm wrong, these weapons replace their normal counterparts, and the battle rifle just isn't there in the game. And I don't think anything else is really missing from Halo 3, but those are the really big things that I at least noticed. The enemies in this game are honestly really similar to Halo 3. I know, big surprise, but being in the same time frame as the start of Halo 2, there was the potential for elites to actually be the enemies. However, the only elites you'll be seeing in this game are already dead, and I'm not sure if they just all died before we got to see them, or if the Great Schism happens and there was a civil war before we got here, which I doubt considering how close to the start of Halo 2 we are, but we sadly only fight brutes as the leaders of squads. Though there is a new enemy, the Engineers. However, I don't like killing them because of what we learn later on, and the Covenant has a real knack for using them as mobile bombs. So most of the time, I'll just ignore them and let them live their lives. Sometimes though, it can't be helped.
Oh, nuts.
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
Now to talk about the game's overall look, and I have to say Halo 3's graphic engine really holds up even in this game. ODST has a really different feel from 3, so it's nice that this game is able to rightfully get it across. This game also has some levels that use these like washed out orange filters that gives it a really distinctive feel that no other Halo game to my knowledge uses. ODST also has some really nice skyboxes that can be very pretty to look at, and just wonderful map design that I like looking at. There's also some times you can look up in the sky and see Covenant cruisers flying low in the atmosphere, and even some of them just glassing the planet. Which is something we haven't really seen in the games yet, from this point of view at least, which is weird since it was such a big thing in the books. And there's also some first-person cutscenes and moments that are really cool and marks a first in the series. These first-person cutscenes can really bring you into the characters more than a third-person cutscene could. And talking about design, I have to say that the ODST armor are really cool, and they make each of the squad members have really unique designs while also not having them be too radically different from each other. They even gave Veronica the recon helmet, so you know she's important. The ODST squad has some great voice actors, all of them fit their characters well, and we even have Nathan Fillion as Buck, which I'm sure you could tell just because they basically put him into Halo, but it's still really cool. And the rookie doesn't talk, but honestly after Master Chief basically being silent isn't a big deal, and the silence in the streets levels work really well. And now onto the soundtrack of this game, and first and foremost, like previous games, it is very good. However, it is fairly different than those previous games, as saxophones instead of being bombastic all the time, though it does have its faster paced moments in the soundtrack when needed, and you've been listening to the soundtrack for the entire video, so I'm sure you can tell. It also even has raindrop noises in the soundtrack just to give you that extra level of immersion. And I have to say, while quite different, it still has the feel of a Halo soundtrack, and I definitely recommend you listen to it. Yeah, that's essentially all I really want to talk about, and yes, Halo 3 ODST is still good after all these years. While a shorter, more grounded story, it is still good and able to be enjoyed from both newcomers and veteran Halo campaign players alike. Unlike previous games where it's recommended that you play the first games to get the full experience, this one, while really enjoyable if you've played the others, can be a great starting point in the series. It has great characters, a great setting, and really good graphics that still hold up today. And of course, an amazing gameplay system that can stand the test of time. For the first of the Bungie FPS spin-off Halo titles, this is a really good start, and I really don't have much to complain about other than that I want more. I really recommend that you play this either on the original 360 or the Master Chief Collection, both are wonderful ways to play this game. And if you want to see more of my Halo retrospectives, you can watch the previous ones. They're there. I've done Combat Evolved through Halo 3, and I'm hoping to do at least Reach and 4 by the end of the year. So I hope you enjoyed the video, have a good day, and goodbye! Hello everybody, this is Llodg, and welcome to Reach. Today I am here with another How Does This Halo Game Hold Up After So Many Years video, and we are finally talking about Halo Reach. Now before I get into this video, I have to say that I am super biased about this campaign, and just this game in particular. While I did play a lot of Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2 with my friends, that was mostly just the multiplayer. Even before we got our own copy of Reach, I heard stories of it from my friend, and I played this campaign so much that it's honestly hard for me to hate the game at all. So yeah, now that you know at least a little bit of my history with this game, let's get to talking about it. Halo Reach actually starts off at the end of the game. With zooming more into the planet, we can see it's been heavily glassed. And there's our helmet. And just off the bat, I just have to say I love this choice that they went with. Then we flash to our Spartan putting on that same helmet, and yeah, this is the first FPS Halo game that lets us play as a Spartan other than Master Chief, and not just any Spartan Bungie wanted us to play as, but as your own Spartan that you're able to fully customize however you want. And I think it's super cool that you're able to have your Spartan look however you want, and makes every playthrough of this game unique. Well, unique in that you have your own armor to actually customize them. So throughout the game we play as Noble 6, the newest recruit to Noble Team, which is a Spartan team made up of mostly Spartan 3s and one Spartan 2. Those being Noble 1, Carter, Noble 2, Kat, Noble 3, June, Noble 4, Emil, and Noble 5, George. And they'll be AI controlled characters throughout the game that in each level we can team up with them when the story calls for it. But if you're playing co-op, the second player will also play as like a Noble 6, though I like to call them Noble 7 through 9. So Noble Team has to go investigate some rumors about supposed insurrection stuff going on, and we interrogate some farmers that even speak a cool Reach language. What do you mean it's just Hungarian? Anyway, they say that there was something attacking them in the night, and we go to investigate and we find the Covenant on Reach. And for those who know the lore of Halo, this is a big deal, as Reach is basically the last big human colony, and the Covenant finally found it and are invading it. So most of the game is about trying to defend Reach from the Covenant, and we even have to defend an Oni base, kind of like ODST, except we're actually able to defend it. And now we get to see Dr. Halsey.
Repeat? Sounded like you said Halsey.
Yep, this is Dr. Halsey's first game appearance, which is really cool since she's been in the book since the very beginning. Also, I know Bungie didn't really intend this when they include her in this game, but it's nice Dr. Halsey is here for people who didn't read the books, since in the next 343 games, she's kind of a big part of them. Also, I really like how George respects Dr. Halsey much more than the other Spartans, since he's a Spartan too, and they basically see her as like a mother figure. Though maybe I just think this because every time I heard George say ma'am, I think he says mom.
Mom?
But she points us in the direction of what the Covenant might be up to, and we go to investigate it in a level that feels similar to Halo Combat Evolved's Truth and Reconciliation level, which I think is cool. Anyway, June and I find out that the Covenant has a giant army already on Reach, so we need to fight them head on. And in what may be the coolest cutscene in Halo to date, we really see how much of a war for Reach this is. And after fighting through many Covenant soldiers and even taking down anti-air turrets, we make it to the Spire and get EMP'd by the shield, so we have to travel to it on foot. And we get to go up this really cool elevator, and we shut it down and barely make it onto the Falcon. And this is so cool, we see a frigate actually blow something up with a background in atmosphere. Wait, what?
No, somebody tell me this ain't happening.
So yeah, the Covenant isn't playing around, even bringing in a gigantic Covenant supercarrier that's so big that it seems like the camera will never stop panning to the front of it. So we need to figure out how to take it out, because with it, the Covenant is able to unleash even scarabs onto the planet. So we come up with a plan to take a Saber ship up into space so we can take over a smaller Covenant cruiser for refueling, to then get on the supercarrier, to make a slipspace rupture to send half of the ship to oblivion. And it goes without saying, but being able to fly in space, even if it's kind of limited, is super cool. You get to fight Seraphs, Phantoms, even Space Banshees with missiles, and it's super cool. So anyway, we take over the ship with this really cool hologram of Reach, and we have everything ready to go to send the ship and the supercarrier to its doom.
Well, I got good news and bad news.
What's the bad news? Are we going to take out too much of the Covenant for this to be a fun game?
Bad news is, time is fried. I'm gonna have to fire it manually.
Wait, George, don't do this. George, please, no. Wait, George, please. George! George gave his life to defend Reach, and in his mind, he thought he saved it. However...
Slipspace rupture detected.
Yeah, we're picking up anomalies too. Are you reading it? Multiple Covenant signatures. They're everywhere. The whole damn Covenant.
Yeah, there's a lot more of this game, and I have to say, the tone of this game can really feel hopeless at times. You thought you just saved the planet to knowing that this fight is far from over, and you just lost one of your squad mates. So next we fight through New Alexandria, not Reach City, and we see the return of spirits. Oh, and the brutes are here too, I guess. We go to help the ODSTs get extraction for the civilians, however, it isn't entirely a success.
Oh my god.
Mayday! 6 Echo 2, can you maintain altitude?
Negative! We're going down! Son of a bitch. I can't watch this.
On the upside though, we are able to reunite with Noble Team, and we need to destroy the Covenant jamming devices throughout the city, and hey, we even get to help Bug during the way.
I owe you one, Spartan. See you in hell.
While we are having a talk with Noble Team about the war, the Covenant starts glassing the city with us still in it. It creates an EMP that disables all of our shields.
They're still hunting for something.
Where does he get off calling a demolition a priority one?
Yeah, a Zealot Elite was able to shoot off one needle rifle directly into Kat, and without her shields, it was pretty much over for her. This death of Noble Team seems much less earned than George's. He was doing something good, however, I don't think Kat's death is bad in any way. It really shows how much humanity is on its back foot throughout the war, and I'm sure it shocked so many people 12 years ago. However, we still have orders, and we need to head back to Sword Base to destroy all the information that's in there. We are able to bust our way back into Sword Base even though the Covenant are everywhere, and it's pretty much destroyed. However, we learn that we need to go deep underground into Dr. Halsey's research area, and learn that it has some Forerunner ruins. However, this fact doesn't really matter, but we need to defend our lab from the Covenant before we can go in. After we clear the Covenant, we see what Dr. Halsey has been working on, and it's this AI, Cortana. We need to personally deliver Cortana to the Pillar of Autumn, and this is our final mission. Delivering Cortana is what Halsey says could win the war, and I think it's really cool that they have us, Noble 6, deliver Cortana since she's like a big part of the games that come before this. June goes with Halsey to ensure safety, and it's the last we see of him in this game. Carter, Emil, and I have to get Cortana to the Pillar of Autumn. However, with the Covenant still hot on our trail, leave Carter and the Pelican so we can hopefully get them off our back. For this mission, we aren't fighting through the Covenant tooth and nail. We are running past them as fast as possible. They are even dropping scarabs before us. However, there is one scarab that we're not going to be able to run past.
Situation. Mother, we can get past this, sir.
No, you can't. Not without help.
Commander, you don't have the firepower.
I've got the map.
Solid copy. Hit him hard, boys.
You're on your own, Noble. Carter out.
After George and Kat's deaths, it may seem like an inevitability that Carter would go out too, but still, it always makes my heart drop at this scene, though it really is a cool death. When we finally do make it to the platform, Emil takes the mat gun to clear the skies, and we have to try and clear this platform for a Pelican to pick us up. When the Pelican comes, we see the captain of the ship, Captain Keyes. We give him Cortana, and as we are about to get on the ship, Emil is prepared to fire the mat gun at the cruiser so that Autumn can get off the planet until...
Who's next? I'm ready! How about you?
Man, 2 deaths in 1 level. Emil's death is definitely my favorite for how he goes out. Zealots come down to attack him, presumably similar ones that attacked us at the start of the game, and took out Kat, so it's cool that Emil's at least able to take out some of them with him. And you're able to see his body leaning against a railing, but with no one manning the mat gun, we have to stay on reach and take out the Phantoms and that carrier. With our efforts, the Pillar of Autumn is able to get away, and 3 weeks later, get to Alpha Halo, the same one in Combat Evolved. Yeah, this game is able to lead directly into Combat Evolved if you want to play them in a timeline order. You can even see Master Chief in his cryotube. But our story isn't over yet. With no way off Reach, we have one final mission: survive. This final level of Halo Reach is very different from the other games. This is a mission we won't be able to complete. Here you fight wave after wave of Covenant soldiers. Around you are various power weapons and armored abilities, and other dead Spartans who will share our same fate. This is definitely one of the most memorable missions in all of Halo. I'm sure everyone remembers their first time with Lone Wolf. As you fight and take damage, your helmet gets visible cracks on it, and eventually your HUD starts to turn off, so you don't know how much health or ammo you have left. No matter how well you do, eventually you will mess up. I think this cutscene is one of, if not the best in the series. The music fits the tone so perfectly, the camera stays with the helmet after Six takes it off, and you can only barely see what's happening. You can see him barely fight off these elites, and at the end, you know exactly what happens. How we fall. The game, however, ends on a pretty hopeful note. Despite losing the planet now, our efforts were actually able to allow humanity to come back after 40 years to start again. And I really love this since the game starts out with telling you exactly how it ends, but it's leaving out the part where our efforts weren't exactly futile. Delivering Cortana allowed the Chief to fight off the Covenant and do the things she did in Combat Evolved through Halo 3. And that's the story of Halo Reach. It's pretty simple, especially compared to games like Halo 2. It's a simple fight between humanity against aliens. There isn't any other hidden faction to fight against, but I do love it so much. There also isn't like any point of view of the Covenant, so we don't see the Prophets or Thelfidem at all, even though he's leading the glassing on Reach. I guess there are people out there that think this elite is him because he's using the energy sword in his left hand, but I don't know. There is a reason people want Halo to go back to humanity fighting against the Covenant, and this is why. So yeah, the story in my opinion has to be one of my favorites in the series. Now I want to talk about the characters. Don't worry, it'll be quick. So the main Noble team cast is pretty good, I'd say. My favorites are probably Emil and George. Though they all have their moments, I just wish we got more time with them, and I wish none of them had died so we could have seen them in future games, but oh well. There are some side characters and they're just there. Dr. Halsey's a pretty cool inclusion, like I said, for her being important in future games, but it is just cool having her after like 9 years of her just being in the books. And to talk about the elephant in the room, this game does not line up with the first Halo book, Fall of Reach. This is a big problem for some people who love the lore in the book. There are certain elements in the story that directly contradict each other, like how Master Chief is given Cortana before the Covenant even finds Reach, or even that Chief never goes down to the surface of Reach during the invasion. It would have been cool for the game to be like a Master Chief story where we would go about to steal a profit from the Covenant, then they come to glass the planet, but I understand and really like the decision to have the story not have Master Chief and bring brand new Spartans into it. This game also shows us another AI other than Cortana with Anti-Dot. I think she's pretty cool, though she's not as advanced as Cortana and doesn't do too much in the actual story. Though I do love at the start of some missions, she'll kind of give like a mission briefing with this cool map of Reach that you can even see certain stuff happening on the battlefield. Now to talk about some stuff that isn't the story, like the gameplay. The gameplay is like other Halo games, big shock, I know. However, it does add a pretty big feature being armor abilities, replacing the equipment system of Halo 3. Spartan abilities are special abilities that allow you to do certain stuff like sprinting, making a hologram of yourself run, a drop shield to restore health and shield you, armor lock, it just locks your armor and makes you invulnerable to all attacks, the jetpack so you can fly around the map, and active camo, which I'm not sure is in the campaign or not, because I don't think I ever found it. Let me know in the comments if it's actually in the campaign though. And yeah, I generally like them, some more than others. They allow for some interesting things that you can do while fighting enemies, and I don't find any of them useless, unlike how some of the equipment in Halo 3 felt like it just hurt the player, though I understand why some people don't like them, as they really only help the player, and it never negatively affects both the enemies and you. Like the other games, Reach has new and returning weapons. I feel like since that this game is set before Combat Evolved, Bungie hesitated to bring back everything from previous games, so it feels like a mixed bag of stuff that was in Halo CE and some new stuff. And I'll be honest, while I do like some of the new weapons, especially in concept, there are a lot I don't really care for and feel the weapon sandbox is a bit limited. Though I do love some of the new weapons, especially the DMR and Needle Rifle, top tier weapons that I feel like should come back in every game. And since this game took place before CE, we have health, though I think it's handled so much better in this game. You have these layers that you can regen within, and health packs that give you full health like the game like CE does, so it isn't as intrusive as it can feel in CE. And I thought I should mention this, but this game continues the trend of no dual-wielding weapons. I know instead in ODST it never reappeared, but that could be explained in a lore reason, why they can't dual-wield, and since this is a brand new game, I thought it was appropriate to mention it here as well. And something new in Reach is the assassinations, where if you get behind an enemy and you hold down melee, you can assassinate them. And you can assassinate basically all the enemies that have 2 legs, unless they're hunters. And they have a few animations that they'll run between. It's just like an extra cool flair of a melee. Nothing really special though. The enemies in this game really do feel like Bungie wanted to go all out with their last game, even with my least favorite enemy, the drones. That's not forgetting something, all the Covenant species return, and I really like how they are designed here. Except for the brutes, they have my least favorite designs in Reach. Like, why do they look like this? And the elites are not as good as Halo CE and 2, but they are so much better than 3 in my opinion. They are all also basically perfected with their gameplay designs, so there is no complaining at all from me on that standpoint. Also, the engineers are back from ODST and even have a new ability of not having bombs strapped on them, and they give the Covenant a purple overshield, which is super cool. Though they do still explode when you shoot them. Oh, also remember when I said there was only one faction? I kinda lied, there is another, the wildlife on Reach, and it's made up of MOAs and these things that I don't actually know the name for. These creatures are the only ones that attack you and only appear in one section for Nightfall. First time wildlife is in a Halo game and attacks you, though I just wish it was used a bit more cause it's pretty cool. Like I said, the designs in this game are so good. Like, I love how all the Spartans look in this game. I just love looking at the amount of detail that's in some of their armor. This is what I want all Spartans to look like in Halo. It just looks so good, and it makes sense while they are able to do everything they do without looking super clunky or slow. Finally, seeing Spartans in the story with something other than Master Chief's Mjolnir armor is so cool, and I'm glad it was done so well. Once again, I love how we're able to customize Noble 6's armor into however we want, choosing your armor color, helmet, all of it. You can even look like the other members of Noble Team if you want. I also just love all the vehicle designs, it's just so cool. The vehicles in this game are also pretty cool, like the weapons, they play it pretty safe, but there are a few new vehicles. Like I said, the Saber Ship, which is pretty cool, though limited in where you're able to fly it. The Spectre, which is like a mini Wraith with 2 seats, and it's alright. Nice to see more Covenant vehicles, even if they don't do anything particularly special. And the Falcon. Basically an upgraded Hornet from 3, except the 2 seats let you fire machine guns or grenade launchers, and it's probably my favorite new vehicle from Reach, and I just wish it'd come back to Halo. It was just so cool. The game overall looks very good for a somewhat later 360 game. I struggled to find parts that I'd criticize, and the only thing that I could see improving are the faces, but they are still really good. And I've already said I love how the enemies and Spartans look, and I've yet to talk about how Reach the planet looks. And I gotta say, it looks really good. I love the colors that are used for the planet, the cool blues and greens for the farms at the beginning of the game. And then when the Covenant come and begin to glass the planet, these cool colors are replaced with hot reds and oranges. And man, I love it so much. Looking at the sky's color, you can instantly tell that this is later in the game. I mean, you can especially see it in the missions where you go back to Sword Base. It really helps set the tone of how much humanity has lost Reach just by looking at the color of the sky. And if you've watched my videos before, you know that I love talking about skyboxes, and while there isn't a giant Halo ring in the sky to look at, I do love how Reach's sky looks, and there are points where you can look up and see sky battles taking place with Banshees versus Falcons. And don't even get me started on how good the skybox is when you're in space. Like, they really didn't have to go all out, but they did. This game is also about the glassing of Reach, you know, the thing the Covenant is kind of known for with human worlds. Well, there is a lot of it in this game, and I really love it. We've seen glassing in previous few games, but I don't know, I just think it's done so well in this game. Also, in the mission New Alexandria, we see the Covenant glass the city while we are still flying in it, and it's weirdly beautiful. I also love this game's cutscenes. Now, generally it's pretty similar to what we've seen in the previous games with a simple third-person perspective, however it's added onto by adding in parts of first-person like what was present in ODST, and done even better than that game in my opinion, but by also adding camera shots from security cameras and others that would be there to give the game a more realistic take of what someone would see if they looked on these cameras. They even take a step further by adding certain cutscenes using a first-person camera, but having it be like it's from a war news camera of someone just following them around. One of my favorite instances of this has to be in the mission Nightfall, where the cameraman will even look down at the steps he has to take. I don't know, I just think it's so cool and gives Reach a much more grounded feeling. I need more Halo games to do this as well instead of just going for how a movie would shoot the scenes. I also really like how the Spartans are portrayed in these cutscenes, like their movements and stuff. Like Emil is always just sitting like this, which is pretty cool, and they even have some funny moments of what they do with their hands. Like this one has a scene where Carter's trying to figure out where Oni wants him to go, and Dot says recalculating, and Carter's hand does this like see I was right motion. Now to talk about the music of this game, and unlike my other reviews when talking about the music, I actually have a lot to say. First off, I love the music in this game. It's so good. It does feel different, but still feels and sounds like Halo. Reach does have a really unique soundtrack with its use of the drums, especially. Like when you hear the drum beat, you know it's from Reach. One of my favorite parts of Reach's soundtrack has to be whenever it uses the electric guitar. However, it was really only used like twice as I can tell, when the Zealots first make their appearance and kidnap the scientists, which is a really cool use of it by the way. And when Noble Team is storming the beach of Saber Base. I wish it was used more often, but oh well. I also love the piano during Lone Wolf. It has to be one of my favorite parts of the soundtrack as well. My only really complaint about this game is that certain sections can feel weirdly hard, and the space section can make you go crazy because of how fast you can go down if you're not paying attention, and some of the checkpoints are a bit weird, but really, it's not a huge problem. I just like playing these games on higher difficulties is all. And yeah, I believe that's everything I want to talk about concerning Halo Reach. Like I said, I have a history with this game, so I am really biased, but I think despite that, Reach is a really great game that everyone should try. Even if you haven't played any Halo game at all, Reach is a great starting point and doesn't require you to know games worth of history to get into, and even leads you into the first game of the series. So yeah, I highly recommend it, and I'm not completely sure if this game beats out Halo 2 as my favorite Halo game, but I have to say that these two games may stand side by side as my favorites, cause dang. These are amazing. The characters, the story, the music, the armor, I love it all. Even if I do think the Brutes look their worst here, I still will play this game until the end of time. However, hopefully this next time I'm actually able to complete the last mission. I hope you enjoyed the video, have a good day, and goodbye. Hello everybody, this is Llodg, and welcome to Halo 4. Today, I'm finally back to talking about another Halo game and how it holds up so many years later. Finally, at the end of the 360 Halo games, here we are with Halo 4. Halo 4 initially came out in 2012, 10 years ago, and it is the first Halo game developed without Bungie being present at all. Bungie left after Reach to go on to do other things, but Microsoft didn't want Halo games to stop being made, so they formed a new studio to create them, and that studio is 343 Industries. So with this new studio, a lot of fans of the classic games went into this game skeptical, and still today people seem to hate this game just because it is titled 343. However, this was actually the first Halo game I owned, not the first one I played, just the first one I ever actually owned for myself, so I of course have some nostalgia for this game. Although, unlike Reach, I did find some stuff I disliked in my latest playthrough. And with that out of the way, let's get into talking about the story. The game starts out with Dr. Halsey being questioned by an interrogator. He is asking questions about the Spartans' origins and why they were originally created. We see the Spartans used to defend humanity from the Covenant, and Halsey giving Master Chief Cortana. This cutscene doesn't directly go anywhere in the story after this, it just helps confirm in the games the Spartans' origins that were in the books, and also leads them into the Chief's current whereabouts. Then it cuts into space and we see the Chief's half of the Forward Unto Dawn. The story takes place directly after the events of Halo 3, well, more like 4 years after Halo 3. Hey, it was pretty much instant for Chief. Anyway, Cortana is continuing to do Mayday requests and finally wakes the Chief up as the ship seems to be getting scanned and boarded. You've probably noticed that both Chief and Cortana are sporting some redesigns, and I'll get to talking about that a little more in detail later, but for now I'll just say I like both of these designs in general. We go through the ship, and after a section of climbing on a wall, we come into contact with an enemy elite.
I thought we had a truce with the Covenant.
A lot can happen in 4 years.
So yeah, despite us making an alliance with the elites back in Halo 2 and 3, these elites are against us. And it makes sense that not every elite would be on our side, like I'm sure not every Sangheili was on board with the Arbiter, though these do turn out to be a different kind of Covenant than the ones we knew back in the original trilogy. These are the Storm Covenant led by an elite, although you'd never know that if you only play this campaign, which is kind of weird. Honestly, for this story, if you just think of them as the Covenant like in Halo CE, then you'll lose nothing of real importance. Anyway, we continue on in the ship and have to fight off loads of Covenant trying to board the ship, and it turns out there are a lot more than just a few ships. We go out of the ship into low gravity space to try and destroy the Covenant ships. We manually fire the missile, and the planet is scanning us. Oh, and now the planet is opening. We try to escape, but it's kind of hard to run from a planet that's pulling you in. We end up falling onto the planet's surface, and Cortana seems to be glitching.
We have asked you to give up your family, your childhood, your future.
It turns out that Cortana is deteriorating as...
I was put into service 8 years ago.
8 years?
AIs deteriorate after 7, Chief.
As an 8-year-old AI, Cortana is already well past her expiration date. However, since she is a different kind of AI, Chief believes that Dr. Halsey on Earth could help save Cortana, so the mission of this game is to try and get to Halsey. However, to do that, they'd have to get off this planet, Requiem, a Forerunner shield world. This shield world shows off a different kind of Forerunner architecture than we've previously seen, and I have to say I really do like the world design of this game, though I'll talk about that more later. As we fight through the Covenant forces, we figure out that there seems to be a UNSC ship inside Requiem, and since the planet is hollow and Forerunner, we can portal down there to the planet's core. Right before we leave, a ton of Forerunner enemies start teleporting into the room, but we portal out of there before we can actually make contact. We make it to the core, but it turns out that the UNSC ship, named Infinity, isn't there. The core is just amplifying the Infinity signal, so we attempt to portal around so we can actually make it to the core to use it as an amplifier to contact the Infinity. While trying to make it to the core, we finally come into close contact with these defense AIs, and they are a new faction for Halo called the Prometheans. Basically the Warrior Forerunner class. The Prometheans are made up of a few different enemy types, and I'll go into more detail about them later. So we have to fight through the Covenant and Prometheans fighting against each other, and we finally make it to the planet's core. We touch the pillars with the Reclaimer symbol and start to contact Infinity.
Infinity, this is Sierra 117 of the UNSC Forward Unto Dawn. Do you copy? Infinity, this is Sierra 117.
Turns out by doing this we release something, or should I say someone. This is a living Forerunner, one that absolutely hates humanity, and he can use the Force. The Covenant seem to obey the Didact as they finally found their god.
Even these beasts recognize what you were oblivious to, human.
We get tossed around and the Didact removes the core, causing a slip space rupture that makes the core of the planet crumble, and we have to escape by using a ghost powered up by Master Chief's shields to get away. Once we escape through a portal, we see that the Infinity was also sucked into the planet as well. As these are the first people we've seen in the whole game, we of course go try to find them, but the Didact is interested in them as well, so we all go towards its landing. Now, with the Didact and Covenant working together, the Infinity can't last much longer holding their own, so we go into the jungle to help them out. We eventually find some of the crew from the Infinity, those being Commander Lasky, Sarah Palmer, and other Spartans. That's right, for the first time playing as Master Chief, we see other Spartans. And these are a brand new type of Spartans, Spartan 4s. It's pretty cool to see more Spartans, and then being mass-produced Spartans makes sense in this universe. Now that we are joined with the crew, we go to save the Infinity from the Didact's clutches by going in with a tank, and then going into the Infinity with a brand new vehicle, the Mantis, which is basically a mech that can shoot a machine gun, missiles, even on shields, and can crouch. We destroy some Covenant cruisers and fire a mat gun at the Didact to make him run away. We then meet with the captain of the Infinity, Del Rio, and he doesn't care about stopping the Didact, he just wants to leave. He's also kind of rude to the Master Chief, like the Chief didn't sacrifice everything to save the universe and all of them 4 years ago. For this next mission, we have to remove the gravity well. We actually get to travel around on a new UNSC vehicle, the Mammoth, which is a giant mobile command center that's similar to the elephant seen in Halo 3 Sandtrap level. Even though it's cool that the Mammoth is a thing, I don't think it does anything necessarily special for the mission. It's just a big vehicle that allows you to refuel on the weapons ammo and stuff. So we go down a path with the Mammoth using a target locator to use a mini-mat gun to take out particle cannons, and we see a new Covenant ship, the Lich. And hey, we even get to go inside the Lich, and it's underwhelming. Anyway, we destroy it like a scarab would, and watch it blow up. Eventually we have to go on our own into a Forerunner structure to disable the rest of these guns, and Cortana is just straight up taken, so we go to find her and get transported, and after going into a beam of light we see another Forerunner, the Librarian. She is the Didact's wife and wants humanity to continue on and lead the galaxy. If you want to know more, there are these cool books you can read. But she basically tells the Chief of what happened all the way back in the Forerunner times. Turns out there were ancient humans who were expanding into Forerunner planets, and the Forerunners took this as them invading. And after being defeated and basically sent back to the Stone Age, the Forerunners figured out that the Flood was the reason humanity was running into these Forerunner planets. To be able to fight off and survive the Flood, the Didact had a plan to convert Forerunners into digital beings, then eventually return them back into biological beings. However, turning them back would create abominations, so to fight off the Flood, the Didact would use the Composer to have an army of Prometheans, and to get this army, the Didact would use his Composer on humanity. However, the Forerunners stopped the Didact and took the Composer and imprisoned them here on Requiem. The Didact then figures out where we've been, and the Librarian accelerates the Master Chief's evolutionary journey so he would become immune to the Composer's effects so we can fight off the Didact properly. And oh my gosh, that was a lot of exposition. Honestly, I think it does pretty well explaining why the Didact does what he does, but when writing the script, it can be a lot. I'll talk about this more later, but this is just where some people complain about the game just exposition dumping, and I can see why people think that, but I do like how it was presented with these pre-rendered animations. Anyway, we still got a job to do, so we return to the fight in a tank and blow up the gravity well, so the Infinity can get out of the planet's orbit. We go to tell Del Rio about the Didact's plan, and he once again is against us taking any direct action against the Didact, and is even condescending about what we saw from the Librarian.
I will not allow you to leave this planet!
So I haven't really mentioned this, but throughout the game, every once in a while, Cortana will have these moments where she shows up as static on the Chief's visor, is slow to respond to the Chief's comments, or even goes on to ramble about anything. These are great moments that show off her rampancy, and that isn't just something the story made up. We can see it happening, and it gets worse and worse as the levels go on. Del Rio honestly does what he probably should do and demands that Cortana be retired. I know a lot of people understandably don't like him for doing this, but I get why he wants to retire Cortana. Maybe feels a little bit more understanding when we met him, he would have gone his way, but he also freaks out a bit.
I am ordering you to surrender that AI!
Luckily, Chief isn't going to give up Cortana so easily, so he takes her back. Lassie shows he's a real homie and gives Chief a whole Pelican so he can leave the Infinity. And for the first time in the series, we're actually able to drive a Pelican. It's super cool to finally be able to drive this vehicle since we've seen it since the beginning, and they even made it better by giving it a Spartan Laser. Want to make something better? Give it a Spartan Laser. So anyway, we go and disable the Didact's shield so we can go attack him. Then we plug Cortana into the Spire controls.
They're mine. Now to imprison them!
What are you doing?
However, her rampancy stops her from trapping the Didact. This may or may not become a trend for the next few missions, but the Chief isn't going to let this failure stop him, so he goes and jumps onto the Liches to go with the Didact through the slipspace portal. The Didact, along with the Covenant ships, leaves Requiem, and out the other side of the portal is a Halo.
A Halo?
Installation 3. It's where Infinity found the coordinates for Requiem.
And this is Installation 3. This Halo originally had the composer hidden on it, however some human scientists had taken it off the ring and are studying it aboard a space station. So instead of going onto the ring, we get to see it from space. I guess it's close enough. Anyway, the Didact sends a lot of Covenant forces onto the station to find the composer, while we have to try and evacuate as many scientists as possible, even go blow up the composer with a nuke. However, we are too late, and the Didact just straight up takes the composer and puts it into the ship. With the only hope of stopping the Didact, we go to the ship that'll carry a payload, but... In one of the freakiest cutscenes in all of Halo, the Didact just composed every single scientist and other personnel on the station. They are all instantly turned into dust and digitalized, except for the Chief. Cortana could only watch as she could do nothing to stop all these people from dying. It's definitely a scary part of the game and shows how deadly the Didact is with this weapon. Luckily, the Master Chief is now immune to the effects of the composer, so he's fine. Well, as fine as he can be after seeing everything that just transpired. Now filled with resolve, the Chief convinces Cortana that they need to continue this mission. Using a broadsword from the station, the Chief and Cortana plan on nuking the Didact. I'm honestly not sure how they made it to the Didact before he portaled away, but they make it to stow away on the Didact ship to go on a trench run to blow up the composer. This is a really cool section where we are once again able to fly a ship in space. Well, kind of in space, but this is definitely one of my favorite sections of the game, and it really reminds me of Star Fox. The Didact is able to make it to Earth before we can actually make it to the composer, and it turns out that the Infinity is also at Earth, and Lasky is now the new captain. Apparently the UNSC didn't like Del Rio leaving the Chief stranded on Requiem. Can you imagine being some of the people on the Infinity? Well, we left Chief on Requiem. What do you mean he's already at Earth? The Infinity tries to slow down the Didact ship, and with our help, the Infinity shoots a hole into the Forerunner ship so we can fly into the composer. However, the ship starts closing in on itself and crushes our ship. This of course doesn't even stop the Chief as he grabs the nuke, puts it on his back, and continues on this mission. As Cortana is breaking down more and more, Chief closes in on the Didact, and Cortana figures out the only way to break down the Didact's barriers is for Cortana to give in to her rampancy and split her rampant personality spikes into the system to overwhelm the composer's shields. After doing this a few times, the shield finally goes down, however we are a bit too late.
And yet, still you fail.
The Didact begins composing Earth and even blows up the terminal holding Cortana's ship, trapping her into the system. The Chief goes to face the Didact head on and blow up the composer.
You persist too long after your own defeat. Come then, warrior. Have your resolution. Humanity's imprisonment is a kindness.
When all hope seems lost, Cortana is able to physically manifest her split personalities through the hard light bridge and hold the Didact, giving Chief enough time to stick a grenade onto him and blowing him up and making him fall into the composer. However, the mission isn't over yet, and Chief has to blow up the nuke to save Earth. Cortana was able to save the Chief by using the hard light from the ship, however most of her was still in the ship, so this is her death. Chief couldn't save Cortana and bring her to Halsey. He might have saved Earth, but he failed Cortana. After a heartfelt goodbye, Chief once again drifts off into space to be found by Infinity. Lasky and Chief have a really nice conversation, honestly one of my favorites in the series. It seems to set up the question of what Chief will do next. Will he try to be less of a machine and become more human? The game ends with a speech from the Didact, and you can see how the Chief, even after losing Cortana, still carries on somewhat normally around the other UNSC members. We don't know what will come next, but we are ready for whatever life throws at us. And that's the story of Halo 4. Honestly, it's one of my favorite Halos, if not my favorite story. Replaying it really reminded me of what I loved about this game. The story of Chief and Cortana is just one of my favorites, and the Didact, even though he isn't as present in the game as I would have liked, is great. I need to say it now before I forget, but the voice actors for this game really did a wonderful job. Steve Downes and Jen Taylor as Master Chief and Cortana respectively did such a good job. It's definitely my favorite performances out of all of the Halo games, and I know some people don't like Master Chief talking a lot and prefer him keeping it to himself, but for this game's story, I think it works really well as he has some of my favorite lines with Cortana.
Don't think about the didact. Don't think about the composer. Only focus on finding me, Tilson.
Also, we saw some pretty good one-liners in this game.
I don't suppose you're any good at clearing LZs.
On occasion.
The voice actor for the didact, Chief Zarabaka, sorry if I mispronounced his name, did a great job as well, and he has some of my favorite voices in gaming.
Time was your ally, human. But now it has abandoned you. The Forerunners have returned.
Now, I know the story's overall setting and background can be kind of confusing for those first playing the game. It talks about the Forerunners and ancient humans, and honestly, even when I was trying to summarize what was happening, I did have issues with trying to talk about these scenes without either dumbing it down way too much, and then just not summarizing it enough. Like, I'm still confused on how the librarian is actually there. They give a lot of information fast to you, but honestly, it just kind of gives you the didact's motivations, and other than what the composer can do, it's not all that necessary for your understanding of the game as a whole. But if you do want to know more about the Forerunners and stuff like this, I highly recommend you read Greg Bear's Forerunner trilogy. He sadly passed away recently, so I feel like I need to shout these books out because they are really interesting reads. Halo 4 also has a pretty good cast of new human characters. The important ones for this game are Lasky and Palmer. Lasky is obviously a fan favorite, even having this line that just shows how good he is.
Copy, Cortana. Weapons! Prepare firing solution. We promised to get the Chief inside that ship, and I'm not about to let that man down.
Palmer isn't as important in this game as she is in like Spartan Ops, but she gets introduced here and people don't like her too much, and it's because of this one scene.
I thought you'd be taller.
Though this scene really is just meeting the person you've been trying to live up to, and how do you even talk to that person, no legend, that you're basically been trying to become. The line eventually has its payoff at the end where you see Chief standing taller even at his lowest point, and Del Rio is also there. I don't think anyone actually likes his character, but that's also kind of the whole point of him. He's supposed to be unlikable, although he does have some points, like how if the Infinity went head to head with the Didact's forces, there would probably be a lot of casualties, though we probably should have listened to the man who punched the Prophet and stopped the annihilation of every species in the galaxy, but oh well. I don't think we ever hear from Del Rio again, and his comeuppance is off screen, which is a bit disappointing. Okay, now I should probably talk about the gameplay now, right? So the gameplay is actually super similar to Halo Reach's. You get to once again use Spartan abilities in this game, and they work pretty much the same as in Reach. However, there are some differences. First off, instead of Sprint being an armor ability, it's now just a part of your natural moveset, so you now get to have it an armor ability and still sprint without having to drop one or the other. The returning armor abilities are the Jetpack, the Hologram, and Active Camo. These all work either the same or extremely similar to how they do in Halo Reach. The new armor abilities are the Hard Light Shield, making a shield that will block attacks from hurting you, Promethean Vision, allowing you to see enemies through fog or even walls, Thruster Pack, allowing you to make quick dodges depending on where you point the stick, Auto Sentry, where you can create a little Forerunner buddy to attack enemies, and finally, the Regeneration Field. Like the drop shield in Halo Reach, except it regens your health, but doesn't protect you at all. And I don't think this is in the campaign, but you can let me know if it is, because I thought Active Camo wasn't in Reach, and it was, and you guys really let me know. Much like Halo 3, we can only see our shield and not our health. I'm pretty sure it works like Halo 2 to 3, where you have health, but you just can't see it. So there aren't very many missions in Halo 4. There are like 10 on the MCC page, although the first and last ones are just cutscenes, so there are really only 8, which is the least in any of the Halo games I've covered on the channel so far. Although there aren't a lot, I have to say that the majority of them are much longer than they have any right to be. There were so many times I was playing a mission and remembered a later part in the mission, but thought, oh no, this can't be this mission. The next mission must have a section with a similar biome or something. But nope, I'd get teleported to that section. It has the opposite problem of Halo 2 to me. Halo 2 had so many missions that felt split in half, while 4 had so many missions that seemed to go on for so long, because no mission really has the same looks as the last. The missions themselves are alright, most of them are super linear with no way to tackle the missions in creative ways, although when playing the game I didn't feel as though it was bad in any way, though I'm sure it's a complaint that a lot of people have against this game. Now I should talk about the enemies since you'll need to use the armor abilities on them. First I'll talk about the new faction being the Forerunners. Like I said before, they are consisted of a few enemy types, the Knights, which are basically the main enemy of the faction. They are able to use different Forerunner weapons. That's right, they are brand new weapons for the Forerunners. I'll quickly talk about these weapons as the Promethean enemies can only use those. They're the Light Rifle, basically a DMR that lets you zoom in so you can do more damage, the Suppressor, an Assault Rifle, the Bolt Shot, basically a pistol that if you hold down and charge it, it can be used as a shotgun, the Scatter Shot, it's just a shotgun, Bio Rifle, it's a sniper rifle, the Incineration Cannon, a rocket launcher with an awesome name and cool explosion, and Pulse Grenade, which will be thrown to create a spear that will eventually kill you. These weapons, while the idea of having more Forerunner weapons is cool, are really just lame, especially compared to how they are used in future installments. They are just variations of other types of weapons, with little to make them unique outside of how they look. Anyway, back to the Prometheans. So the Knights can wield any one of these weapons except for the bolt shot, and there are different classes of Knights, like Elites. The basic Knights will be holding either the Suppressor or Light Rifle, while the higher rank ones can use the Scatter Shot, Incineration Cannon, or even worst of all, the Binary Rifle. You can tell what the different classes are: Regular Knight, Knight Lancer, Knight Commander, and Knight Battle Wagon. There are more than 2 classes of Knights? I honestly don't even know what a Battle Wagon is. You can tell when the Knight is a higher rank honestly just by the colors and their back armor pieces that flare up. I'm sorry if I don't show them off that well, I'm just stunned that the Battle Wagon is an enemy name. The Knights also use a lot of different abilities such as shooting, firing a grenade, teleporting, and doing a fast teleport towards you to smack you. They are pretty fearsome enemies. Now onto the Crawlers. They can wield either the Bolt Shot, Suppressor, or occasionally a Binary Rifle. You can tell that they have a Suppressor because they have these spines on their back. You can tell that when they have a Binary Rifle because they have a circle aiming thing on their head. They are also pretty easy to take down as they have no real shields, but as their name suggests, they can crawl everywhere. Now we have the Watchers, which are these flying butterfly looking things that can only wield a bolt shot. While they are fairly weak and will fly away if you fire on them, they can provide support to their fellow Prometheans, such as them giving a hard light shield or even reviving the Knights, which is really uncool of them. They can also spawn these Sentinel Cannons. Honestly, I'm not sure what these are actually supposed to be called, but they are just Sentinel Cannons to me. They will lock onto you and fire a beam that is like a Sentinel beam, and despite the Sentinels appearing multiple times, they only attack in this one section and only attack the Hunters. And other times they just fly around and guide you places. Oh, and the Sentinels aren't really a part of the Promethean faction, but they never attack them unless I'm wrong. Talking about the Hunters, it's finally time to talk about the new Covenant for this game. So unlike previous Halo games, this game actually removes a lot of the previous Covenant enemy types and goes back to basics of the Covenant present in Halo Combat Evolved. With only the Elites, Grunts, Jackals, and Hunters, it's really weird to think of the Covenant being stripped down this much in this game. I guess there is a Brute in this opening cutscene. They do work exactly how they do in previous games, though I'm sure they have little differences here and there, but honestly none of them are big enough for me to take notice. The cool thing about this Covenant is that they are supposedly run by the elite named Joel Madama. However, we never see him in this campaign. We also never see them after the scene of he and the Datic officially forming an alliance. We only have this little scene of them bowing, which in my opinion is a missed opportunity since I love seeing stuff like this, but oh well. I'm more surprised that we never see Joel Madama since it seems like they are setting him up to be something big in the universe. His real reveal is in Spartan Ops, but I think it should have been here. Also, let me know if you guys want me to cover Spartan Ops in some way. I'd be up for doing that. Also, I'm kind of disappointed that once the Covenant does join the Forerunners, it goes down to 2 factions instead of the 3 that we're kind of used to. And the Covenant and Forerunners are kind of split in how they're shown in gameplay, so they don't really overlap in a meaningful way. As you've probably noticed, the Covenant do have a lot of design changes, along with a lot of what we knew from previous Halo games. First, I'll get into design changes I don't like out of the way first. The big ones, the Elites. I know a lot of people don't like this design change at all. It changed them from slim and fast enemies to big and slow, more like brutes, and when first playing the game 10 years ago, I didn't really have much of a problem with them, but nowadays, I really don't like them as much as the absolute peak Elites of Halo CE and 2. Although this really isn't a design change, as the Elites are just a different subspecies of Elites, and actually really like that explanation. It can grow the universe in a cool way as humans aren't all exactly alike, so why should these aliens be? Though it just makes me wish we could get a game with both these larger and the Elites of Days Gone together in a game. Next, I don't too much care for the Grunts. I used to like them, but except for their circular packs, I don't really care for them now. The Hunters, I'm not sure if they really changed anything at all that much, so I like them. The one designer that I actually really like is from the Jackals. I think this more lizard design is super cool, and I love them to appear side by side with the bird Jackals. Now I finally get to talk about the Chief and Cortana design changes. I really do like the Cortana design change, although it really is just making Cortana more of what the designers in CE probably wanted to make her look like, and the facial animations for her are really nice for getting her emotions across. Now for the Chief, I know a lot of people don't like this change. They loved his Halo 2 and 3 armor design a lot, and I've gone back and forth between liking and disliking it. Right now I think I do like it. I really enjoy the darker green for his armor and the orange visor. The thing I don't like too much about the armor is that it feels too much like it's armor and stops him from feeling as fast as he was in previous games, but that isn't really that present in this game, so yeah, I think I do like the armor in this game. I think it looks really cool, and I'm sure if you asked someone on the street who this is, they'd say it's the Master Chief. Okay, and on to the weapons of this game, and honestly it's kind of a mix of Halo 3 and Reach weapons along with some newer ones. Some of the newer weapons that aren't Forerunner weapons are the Saw, Storm Rifle, Railgun, and Sticky Detonator. The only new weapons I didn't too much like were the storm rifle, as it's just a knockoff plasma rifle. I do love the rest though, as they are great weapons to defeat your enemies with. Even though the brutes aren't present, the Didact still manages to steal one of their gravity hammers. Also, the Needler in this game is my absolute favorite in any Halo game. The dark purple and bright pink of it are just everything that I need in a Needler. Nothing has topped it yet. The vehicles in this game are also pretty cool too. You have new ones like the Mantis, although there are some big exclusions, such as no UNSC air vehicle outside of the Pelican you can fly for one mission, and the Broadsword. Although those two exceptions are super cool and gave me everything that I wanted with the game, other than the non-drivable ones that I mentioned early, there aren't really any new vehicles to drive in this game, the Mantis being the only one you can actually do in multiple levels, which is a bit disappointing. Though it also has my favorite ghost design, so win some you lose some. I want to talk about the sound design of this game because I really love the sounds of this game. The sound effects of the beams and Foreigner lasers going sound so good to me. For this game, 343 used actual guns to record them for the UNSC weapons, and it allows for the assault rifle of this game to have my favorite sound effect in any game period. I mean, just listen to this. The only ones I don't love the sound of are the battle rifle. I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but it does sound weird. And the pistol, I think it sounds too weak. The music in this game is also really good. It's composed by Neil Davidge, which is the first main Halo game that is not composed by Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore. Well, the main complaint for this game is that it's too different from the previous soundtracks, and I do agree that it is different, though different shouldn't and doesn't mean bad in this sense. It makes sense that the soundtrack is different as the Chief is on a different Foreigner world that is different to those he's been on before. Also, I never see people talking about the monk chants that play when Chief goes near Installation 3. My favorite tracks from Halo 4 are 117 and Revival, one for the Chief and one for the Didact. I'm sure you guys all know that these are great tracks though, and I highly recommend that you listen to the soundtrack if you haven't already. The graphics for this game are pretty good. As a late 360 game, I think they hold up pretty well, although some textures could be better, but oh well. I also really love some of the skyboxes for this game. If you've seen my other videos, you know how much I love skyboxes, but man, the ones in this game are so pretty. Like when you can see the ring, and especially when you look up and see the Earth and the stars, it's so pretty. I also really love the pre-rendered cutscenes. I know some people prefer in-game cutscenes to pre-rendered, but the pre-rendered for this game make it look so good that I'm okay with it. Also, despite this game releasing 2 years after Reach, there is a lot of little details in this game, like the Prometheans changing colors when aligning with the Didact, being able to eject the Covenant back into space, this Jackal going ham on scientists. And finally, they do something I love in media. When someone says a word for another word that they use, even when it makes sense to use the other word that they would use, since it would make sense for them. The Didact and Librarian both call Cortana an Ancilla instead of an AI.
Even your Ancilla.
This evolved Ancilla.
It makes sense that they would say this because Ancillas are just Foreigner AIs, but they are different, but they really only know the word Ancilla. I don't know, I just love this stuff. Makes the world feel so much bigger. Okay, and now onto my final thoughts that I'm not really sure exactly where I'd put them. First, I think the time skip should have been like 5 years since Halo 3 was in 2007 and this game in 2012, and always seemed like a no-brainer to me, but I guess it would have been too long of a wait for Cortana to become rampant. Next, I really like Dr. Tilson, and her death will always scar me. Also, for some reason, I have a distinct memory of her being Dr. Halsey and being confused about it, though along the way I figured out that she wasn't, so it's just kind of a weird memory that I have. I really like this part where you first get the thruster pack, since it's a perfect tutorial of how to use it by finding the hunters where you want to dodge around them. Excellent gameplay design. I also wish that this game was delayed 1 year and launched on the Xbox One in 2013. The team could make the game have looked even better, but I would have probably questioned why the time skip wasn't 6 years. And that would have been way too long for Cortana, so I think it worked out in the end. I also did a poll on my YouTube community page asking if you guys liked Halo 4's campaign or not, and it was honestly much closer than I was expecting. I'll do these polls after my playthroughs when beating games to know your guys' thoughts on the game, so thank you for those who voted and even commented your thoughts on it. It was really interesting to hear more perspectives about this game. And that's everything I wanted to talk about with Halo 4, one of my favorite Halo games that I now see has some issues here and there, but also if you don't look ahead at all the things that seem to be setting up to stuff that never got expanded on, I think this is a really fun and good game with an interesting story. This video is hopefully all my thoughts on this game, and I hope I don't forget anything or mess up at all. Let me know if I did, because I'd love to know. Not really, but I kind of need to know. So I hope if anything, this video got you to think about Halo 4 and how it does have positive sides, or maybe you'll even give it another chance, because despite its issues, I still really enjoy this game, and as the first game from a new developer, I thought they did a wonderful job of continuing the series, and I can't wait to see what happens next. What do you mean the next game is super disconnected from this one? I hope you enjoyed the video, have a good day, and goodbye! Hello everybody, this is Llodg, and welcome to Halo 4 Spartan Ops. Today I'm going to be talking about the side mode that came alongside Halo 4. Spartan Ops was originally released alongside the main Halo 4 campaign, and then about every week, they took a break in the middle of December. They released a new episode and ended up with a total of 10. Those episodes are Departure, Artifact, Catherine, Didact's Hand, Memento Mori, Scattered, Invasion, Expendable, Key, and Exodus. And each of those episodes have 5 levels each, making for a total whopping 50 levels, which is over the amount of missions that were present in the original Bungie trilogy. Despite how many missions there are, I'm hoping this video will be a bit shorter than my other ones, since they have the same enemies and mechanics from Halo 4's campaign. A surprise, I know. So if you want to hear my thoughts on the enemies, weapons, and overall mechanics of Halo 4, then you should go check out my How Does Halo 4 Hold Up 10 Years Ago video. And then maybe come back to this video, please. Halo 4 Spartan Ops also comes along with a pre-rendered cutscene for each of these episodes, and they tell you the main story of Spartan Ops, and they are called Halo Infinity, because you know they're on the Infinity. But after Halo Infinite, Halo Infinity just sounds kind of off. I'm sorry, I'm already getting off topic. Anyway, these cutscenes are honestly all you need if you want to know the story tied in with Spartan Ops, because while the missions do have story content, they are more supplemental compared to the cutscenes. Also, the cutscenes go by much faster, so when I talk about the story, I'm mostly going by what's in the cutscenes, but I will throw in what's happening during the gameplay when needed and makes sense. This video would honestly be like an hour long if you got me talking about what happens in all 50 missions. So with that, let's get into it. 6 months after Halo 4's story, and the city of New Phoenix getting composed, the Infinity returns to Requiem, but the Storm Covenant is there to also keep the planet because of all the Forerunner artifacts, and we finally get to see the Storm Covenant's leader, an elite named Joel Mandama. He wants to have the Forerunner artifacts just for the power that they can grant him. On the Infinity side of things, we meet with the Spartans of Fireteam Majestic, and honestly the only character you really need to know is Spartan Thorn. Everyone else just kind of blends together after this first cutscene with them. But this fire team is who we generally follow through these cutscenes. I should probably mention that the fire team that we are as players are called Crimson. There are also some other fire teams mentioned, but I don't really care about them enough since we don't visually see them at any point as far as I'm aware. Anyway, we jump through a slip space portal and quite literally ram into the fight with the Storm Covenant. On the gameplay side of things, after 5 levels of doing stuff, we find a Forerunner artifact and bring it back onto the Infinity. The artifact is able to turn off all the Infinity's engines, since those engines are also Forerunner, so the engines and the artifact are talking together. Trying to investigate it, Dr. Glassman gets sucked through the portal and transported to Joel Mandama. Also a good time to mention that the early cutscenes just kind of end abruptly. They're very weird, and I bet when these first came out, people were very mad that they just ended suddenly. Anyway, they bring in Dr. Halsey to try and figure out what's going on, since she was the one who helped build this ship originally. And I gotta say, I think it's really cool that Dr. Halsey is finally in a game with a pretty big role. She was barely in Halo 4, and other than giving Noble 6 Cortana, she wasn't in Reach all that much. But in Spartan Ops, she actually does stuff. Also, now she's a war criminal, for what? Probably because she abducted children and made them into super soldiers or something small, I don't know. Anyway, she explains why the engines are down. Also, we get to see Palmer's aversion to Dr. Halsey being here, which is kind of cool. At the same time, we see that Dr. Glassman is forced by Joel Mandama to activate this machine to be able to talk to the librarian. Also, they have all the elites in this speak Sangheili. It doesn't really affect anything story-wise, other than this line.
Love, I keep telling you people I don't speak Sangheili.
But it also makes you read the subtitles to figure out what they're saying, and I don't know why they made the subtitles white in this, but it can be so hard to read when they come across a bright area. I think it's a bad color choice for subtitles. Also, we get a scene of Spartan Thorn talking to Dr. Halsey about why he became a Spartan and how Dr. Halsey just wants to learn about anything she can. Also, she mentions that Promethean sounds like Prometheus, you know, like the Greek god guy. Which begs the question, did the Forerunners name Prometheans after this guy, or was Prometheus named after the Forerunner robots? Something to think about. After a lot of levels, we finally secure another Forerunner object that has a Promethean soul inside of it. Fireteam Majestic ends up being the ones to take it onto the Infinity, because of course they want all the credit. And even though Joel Mandama sees us take it, he lets us go, because reasons. On board the Infinity, Dr. Halsey figures out that this particular Promethean soul was a human, and not just any human, but one that was on Earth and died from the composer on New Phoenix 6 months ago. Since one of the memories showed the Forerunner artifact, and Thorne had a family on New Phoenix on the day of the attack, he goes to touch the artifact and gets teleported in the exact same way Dr. Glassman did. I didn't mention this, but throughout Dr. Halsey's time on the Infinity, she has been communicating with someone on her iPad, and that someone was Joel Mandama. And he can see through this globe thing. I don't know, it's weird. But Lasky and Palmer figure this out, and since she's talking with her enemy, she gets arrested. And that's the story up to Memento Mori, and I just want to say that I played through all these levels on Heroic before recording the specific levels. I played them in Normal, and honestly I should have done this full game in Normal, because playing on Heroic was such a dreadful task. Like, these levels took me like about 30 minutes to do, and most of them were in fairly small arenas with lots of enemies, like too many enemies. I'll talk about that more after I get through the story, but I was so close to just stop playing and watch all the cutscenes and make this review without playing the other 25 levels. But from Scattered onwards, I think it gets so much better. The levels are actually made with Spartan Ops in mind, and the levels are so much bigger, and it has you traveling some good distance, so I enjoy them so much more. Even though they share some negative things with the first 25 levels. I'll talk about it more later in the video, but I just wanted to bring it up now since I almost stopped playing at this point. Anyway, somehow at the end of Memento Mori, we get captured. Honestly, I have no idea how, I don't remember at all, but we break out of the change and get to fight our way out in an honestly a really good level. Honestly, the entire Scattered episode is so good, especially after playing through the same boring levels in the chapters leading up to it. But we save some Marines and even steal a Phantom that we get to fly in and out of the missions instead of being on the Pelican. Sadly, it doesn't last too long, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Back on the Infinity, Lasky and Palmer are interrogating Dr. Halsey and why she would want to do this, and her answer is honestly,
and I so desperately want to know everything.
Roland, the Infinity's AI, interrupts and says that Thorne has been detected as alive on Requiem, and we even get a few flashes of him trying to fight the elites before he was defeated. Glassman, on the other hand, finally gets the machine to turn on, and in the elite's amazement of it working, Glassman runs away. Also, his rope that Gek had tied to him is just not attached anymore, it's just hanging there. I'm not sure if I missed the scene of him cutting it or what, because he can just easily run out of there now. But the machine doesn't actually work yet, Glassman just likes to leave things half finished, I guess. Anyway, during this, Thorne was able to fight off those elites and find Glassman and rip off the bomb jacket that was strapped to him so it wouldn't blow him up. Back on the Infinity, Roland is talking with Halsey, and she activates some sort of code that allows her to control Roland and get out of her cell and figure out that the Master Chief was alive and actually on the Infinity. And we actually get to see how much Dr. Halsey cares about John compared to some of the other Spartan 2s. Anyway, Roland finally fixes himself and calls some Marines to take her back, and while they confront her with Lasky, Prometheans are able to teleport onto the Infinity through the Forerunner artifact. So the next 5 missions are us going onto the Infinity to fight off the Prometheans and the Covenant invasion of the Infinity. Oh, and it's also a good set of missions. Oh, this is also where the Phantom blows up, which is sad. Before we can completely wipe the Foreigners off the Infinity, a Promethean Knight comes up and grabs Dr. Halsey and teleports back to Joel Mandama. Also, Fireteam Majestic finds Glassman and Thorne, and they pick up some of the Elite's gear. We also see Lasky talk to an Oni agent, which is really cool that we are seeing more of them in an actual campaign. They order Lasky to eliminate Dr. Halsey. Joel Mandama is finally going to have Dr. Halsey finish what Glassman started, but she just runs into the beam of light. Also, that's where the cutscene ends. I can't imagine having to wait a week to find out if she survived. Now Palmer is all psyched up to go and eliminate Dr. Halsey despite Lasky really not wanting her to go. To try and prevent Dr. Halsey's death, Lasky tells Fireteam Majestic to go intercept Halsey before Palmer can make it there, because why would Fireteam Crimson want to do anything fun, right? Halsey inside the beam of light turns out to actually meet the Librarian. I'm guessing in a similar method to how we saw in Halo 4's main campaign. She gives Halsey the Janus key, which shows the user where all Forerunner technology is in the galaxy, which I feel like is a pretty important thing. Like, Covenant had something similar to that, but way less precise. For some reason it's also split into 2, so you need both halves to make it useful. I'm assuming because the Librarian knew Halsey would fall right back into Joel Mandama's hands, and need to get rid of one of those halves. Anyway, that's exactly what happens. Fireteam Majestic comes in to try and rescue Dr. Halsey, but she is grabbed and throws one of the halves to Thorne. And at the same time, Palmer finally shows up and totally accidentally misses Joel Mandama, and definitely not on purpose. It's Dr. Halsey in the arm. Anyway, they teleport away, and Palmer is all mad that they messed up her plan, and all but Thorne is like,
all due respect, Commander. If she was on Joel Mandama's side, then why was she so sure I needed to get this before he could?
Jomadama realizes that he's had enough of Requiem and just decides to destroy the entire planet by making it fall into the sun. So with the entire Covenant fleet leaving, the Infinity realizes that it can't move because of the Foreigner artifact that we found is holding it like an anchor, and we need to find and deactivate the two other artifacts on the planet, one handled by Majestic and the other by us. And that's what episode 10 is kind of all about. We try to use this harvester that we blew up back in episode 6. Sorry, I kind of skipped over that, but the Covenant were trying to use it to dig into Requiem to find an artifact, so we blew it up, and now we realize it needs some sort of power source, so we go and take it from a Lich. Which I'm glad they're using this new vehicle in Halo, at least another time, though it still gets destroyed in the exact same way. So we go back to the harvester and plug into this new power source and drill a hole through the rock, and despite hearing that
not exactly difficult, so easy a grunt can do it,
we don't actually get to fire at it, it just fires itself into the wall. Anyway, after fighting more enemies, we make it to the artifact and shut it down. Now I have to run out of the cave to evacuate to the Infinity. Also, since we're so close to the sun, as we're running, the gravity will randomly throw you up or to the side. It just does this like twice, and only for this small moment. It's kind of lame, not gonna lie. Like, they could have had like a whole Warthog run using this thing to make it a little bit differently, but no. But we make it onto the Pelican and get back to the Infinity. Now you may be wondering, did Palmer and Fireteam Majestic deactivate their artifact? Well, you wouldn't know that if you were playing on MCC, because for some reason they don't have that episode as one of the viewable cutscenes. Why? I honestly don't know, so I had to find and download it from YouTube to show you guys. So we see Palmer and Majestic go and shut down their artifact, and can't believe they did it after us, and we're only one Spartan on the whole team. Anyway, the Infinity is able to get free, and both fire teams make it onto the Infinity just in time to make a slip space jump as Requiem falls into the sun. Bye Requiem, we hardly knew you. We get a scene of Palmer and Lasky talking a bit more about Dr. Halsey's rescue/assassination attempt, and then have everyone find out that the key needs both parts to work. We can see that Halsey's wound resulted in her having to lose her arm, since Jewel isn't happy that Halsey tried to betray him. However, after that assassination attempt,
that's easy, Jewel. I want revenge.
we end off Spartan Ops with a really intriguing idea, Dr. Halsey being against the UNSC, and it turns out that Spartan Ops was supposed to have multiple seasons, I believe at least 2 more, however these never came to fruition. I'm guessing because not many players made it past the first 5 episodes, let alone when I think the game got good. But these stories were told in the Halo comics, Halo Escalation, and I haven't read those, so I can't tell you what happens there, so go read them yourself, I guess. Overall, I think the story is alright, nothing groundbreaking. I'm glad we get to see more of this new UNSC with Spartan 4s, even getting to see more of Palmer and another squad. And I'll always love to see more Captain Lasky. He continues to be one of the best new characters that they've recreated. I'm glad we finally got to see Jomadama, but I wish we got more of why he wants to do what he does. Because he's actually an interesting character and why he wants the foreigner artifacts compared to why the Prophet's one of them, but from this campaign you can't really tell all that. Also, I do think it's kind of weird that the elites don't speak English, but I also kind of like that it differentiates the Storm Covenant from the one we saw in the Bungie games. Also, I liked Roland, especially the scene of him breaking free from Dr. Halsey's command. It's a really cool visual. The pre-rendered cutscenes do look good, and they were done by Axis Animation, though my only critique is that some of the sections they did were too bright, and it comes back into my gripes with the white captions because they can be so hard to read, especially when some characters need captions to understand them. Also, I don't want to blame the studio, but some of the non-Halo 4 campaign characters, especially Thorn, look weird to me. I don't know, maybe it's because Thorn never has his helmet on or something, but he just looks off. There were some cutscenes at the beginning of the missions that are in-engine, but they are honestly not impressive at all, and really just are enemies standing around while Palmer, Miller, or Roland talks at you. Okay, I also wanted to talk about when you're in the missions. They did this in Halo 4, and I don't believe I mentioned it in my Halo 4 video, but I really liked when Cortana would talk to you and you could visually see her in the corner, and they do a similar thing here with Palmer and Miller. They're pre-rendered animations. I think it's cool that you can visually see them when they're talking. Though when Roland comes around, he has this little graphic, but then you never see him, and I think that's a missed opportunity, but I think it's cool that you can see who you're talking to. Last thing about the story, I don't think there were too many parts that were actually funny, but this scene where Fireteam Majestic gets all this Covenant loot, and this guy just gets...
Oh, great. I got a map.
Always makes me chuckle. It's a dumb scene, and maybe I think it's funny because the rest of Spartan Ops just isn't all that funny. Okay, now talk about the gameplay. Because man, this game is not fun if you're trying to play all 50 levels alone. So in case you're wondering, these levels aren't like the normal levels you would come to expect from a Halo game. Most are just reused multiplayer maps or sections from the campaign, and literally your only actual objective is to kill all the enemies. And let me just tell you, there are a lot. I'm pretty sure this line, or a variation of it, plays in every single level.
Crimson, more coveys arriving. Be ready. Drop pods coming down near your position, Crimson. Heads up, drop pods incoming. Miller, recon says Phantom inbound.
Honestly, these levels wouldn't be too bad if there were like 2 less waves, but no, we need another.
Reinforcements inbound, Crimson.
The second half of the levels are better, like I said, but they do end up repeating the levels that we have. But since these ones are so much larger and you get to explore different areas, I found it much better. But it's the best when all 5 levels are brand new in a row. It's just a great feeling after being trapped in these mediocre maps. Since you play as your multiplayer Spartan, and since Halo 4 had custom loadouts, you're actually able to choose which starting weapons and armor ability you want, so I can finally show off the regeneration field. It's a worse drop shield from Halo Reach honestly, but I do like how it'll push things away when you do it. I do like how you're also able to choose which weapons you can start with, so I can make sure I can hear the best assault rifle in Halo once more before it goes away forever. Also, I wanted to bring up really quickly, Halo 4's customization might be my favorite in the series. It's similar to Reach's in where you can customize literally every single part, but along with getting stuff as you level up, you could also do challenges in Halo 4, like getting 50 assassinations to get these cool little shoulder pads. I don't know, I think it was a good next step, and even though Halo 4's armor art style isn't my favorite in the series, I do like the way you got them. Also, since they wanted you to suffer through these levels with friends, when you die, you just respawn. There are no checkpoints or anything like that, which might sound like these levels are easy, and they are, but you just end up slamming your head into a wall for a lot of it. Honestly, these levels aren't bad when they give you power weapons or good vehicles, but they are few and far between, which is a shame because they make the game so much more fun. Also, all the enemies are the exact same, except for some reason they decided to just throw in a million at a time, so you have little chance of surviving them without having to respawn. Also, I do need to correct something from my Halo 4 video. I think I said you couldn't assassinate Watchers, but while playing through the levels, I was able to do so I guess you learn something new every day. I did a poll to find out what you guys thought of Spartan Ops, and it ended up being a perfect 50-50 split, and honestly I can't blame you guys at all because wow. If you didn't like the first couple missions, I honestly can't recommend you play the rest of it because it's such a drag to get through. I honestly wanted to get this video out like a month ago, but there were so many levels that took me like 40 minutes to play through. And even though I really enjoyed Halo 4's base campaign, I don't want to come back to it for a while. Also, some people said that they didn't like Spartan Ops because it replaced Firefight, and I get it, but though I feel like the two could coexist. I mean, some of the fights do feel firefighty, but I see Spartan Ops as its own DLC campaign levels, though they do hide Spartan Ops with all the Firefight game modes, so what do I know. I also think it's funny that the only Halo game to get any sort of campaign missions post-launch is the one 343 Halo game that didn't end on some sort of cliffhanger. Even though I don't like Spartan Ops, I think 343 shouldn't have abandoned it. They should have took what people liked and made some cool DLC campaign missions. Though 343 is kind of known at this point to just straight up remove stuff people don't like, even if they have good qualities. I guess I'll talk about that more when I finally talk about the most hated Halo game, Halo 5 Guardians. So if you want to see when that comes out, then please subscribe, and like and comment and stuff. Also, let me know what you think of Spartan Ops. I think this is the first How Does This Hold Up video where I didn't enjoy the campaign all the way through, which is very interesting to me. So let me know what you thought, if you also enjoy it, or if you want it to come back somehow, because I think Halo Infinite could utilize a Spartan Ops type mode in a very interesting way to get their stories across, but we just don't have it. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the video, have a good day, and goodbye! Hello everybody, this is Llodg, and this is Halo 5 Guardians. Today I am back to talking about how a Halo game holds up with what may be the most controversial Halo game. Okay, maybe not that controversial because most people hate this game, and I haven't played the campaign since it basically came out. I think I played it once on a normal playthrough, and then did a legendary run, and then found all the skulls, and other than playing for a few clips for videos throughout the years, I haven't gone back to see if I really enjoy this game or not. So I replayed it. And I'm not even going to try to hide my real thoughts on the game for further into the video or not, but man, what was this game? I thought 343 did such a good job with Halo 4 that I thought their second full game should be a hit. Well, I guess I should jump into the story for this game. The game starts off with a cutscene of Dr. Halsey going through her lab and working on Cortana, which should probably pull on your heartstrings, since Cortana, you know, died in the last game. Then we cut to a team of Spartan 4s listening to Captain Lasky tell them about their current mission, free Dr. Halsey from Jul 'Mdama. It turns out Halsey has contacted the UNSC about certain attacks and she wants to be freed. Wait, I thought Dr. Halsey was against the UNSC. Why would she want to be put back into their custody? Anyway, it's here we meet Fireteam Osiris, which are made up of all new playable characters. Osiris is made up of a team of Spartan 4s with Agent Llodg, an Oni agent, Holly Tanaka, she was on a planet that was glassed by the Covenant, Olympia Vale, she knows Sangheli, and pretty much anything to do with Sangheli culture, and finally Edward Buck, an ODST. Much like Halo 3, if you play co-op, each player will have a separate character and they can even choose which character they want to be, though if you're playing single player like me, you're stuck to using Llodg. Each character does start with their own separate loadout. Llodg will have a battle rifle, Tanaka will have a DMR, Vale will have an SMG, and Buck will have an assault rifle. They all also carry pistols, well except for Vale, she has the plasma pistol. And some of the characters have unique qualities, like Agent Llodg being able to carry 3 grenades. I'm not exactly sure what each character's special abilities are, but they at least all have something. Anyway, Fireteam Osiris jumps into action in what may be the coolest cutscene in the game. We get to see them fly down onto the planet and fight while running down a hill. For first impressions of these characters, I have to say it's pretty good, especially since before this, I feel like Spartan 4s felt lesser compared to the Spartans that we've seen in previous games, but this cutscene really has them seem like they can at least try to go toe to toe with them. After stabbing an elite with his energy sword, we finally get to play the game, and the gameplay is mostly the same. You have your basic shooting with different weapons and throwing grenades, but unlike the last 2 Halo games, Spartan abilities have been replaced with thruster abilities. Basically, instead of being able to switch between different abilities, you are stuck with the thruster throughout the whole game, but I have to say I like it a lot. With a thruster, you're able to quickly move in any direction. With sprint returning, you're able to do a Spartan charge, which is like an amped up melee, and finally, if you're in the air and hold the melee button, you'll do a ground pound. Also, it's not a part of the thrusters, but you're able to clamber onto things now. It makes it easier to go up higher walls and removes the need to crouch jump. There's also this new system called the Artemis, which can show you your current waypoint objective and also give your team members orders. If you played Star Wars Republic Commando, then this basically is that exact same system from that game here. And I feel like other than the AI being a bit better, it wasn't expanded upon at all or anything like that. A new mechanic added in for Halo 5 is when you lose your shields and health, instead of instantly dying, you just go down. And if your teammates are still alive, they can revive you. Though they aren't the best at doing it, even if it's the only command they are given. So yeah, a lot of new mechanics for Halo, and most of them aren't brought over into any future games, which is just great. Anyways, you're going through the level, you can see Foreigners fighting against the Storm Covenant, which is weird since in Halo 4, they were all on the same team. I mean, I'm not entirely complaining, as that means we actually have 3 distinct factions, but it's just weird how it isn't explained how or why it changed. And what the heck is that?
Hold position. Buy more time.
Yep, the Covenant has a new weapon, the Kraken, but it doesn't do too much in this mission, it's just kind of there in the background. Eventually we get to Jul's location and see Halsey and him arguing. While he's distracted, Osiris takes out so many elites, and wait, did Llodg just kill Jul 'Mdama in a cutscene? But he was hyped up so much in Spartan Ops. Huh? I didn't even get to do anything. So yeah, despite all of Spartan Ops bringing this guy up to be the next prophet of truth for the Covenant, these Spartan 4s, most of them we had just met by the way, take him out in a cutscene in the first mission. Anyway, after that disappointment, Fireteam Osiris takes Dr. Halsey back to the Infinity, and as she's being taken away by Palmer, Halsey's asking why it took so long to rescue her, and...
What has she done? How far has it already gone?
Good work, Osiris.
What do you think that's about?
I don't know either, Buck. Then we cut to Master Chief feeling the neural implant in his helmet, missing something that has been there for years. But anyway, yeah, Master Chief is actually in this game, and guess what? He's on a mission with Blue Team, the same characters who have been in Halo since before Combat Evolved in the books like Fall of Reach. And man, it's good to see him in a game finally. I can't believe it took almost 15 years for it to actually happen. If you don't know who Blue Team is, it's made up of Master Chief, Fred, Kelly, and Linda. In the books, they all have their own specializations and stuff, but within the game, Kelly has a shotgun, Linda has a sniper, Fred has a DMR, and Master Chief has an assault rifle. Yeah, Blue Team does have some core weapons than Fireteam Osiris, but since I'm in single player, I'm stuck with Master Chief's assault rifle. They are here to investigate a lost Oni station, but while they are here and fighting some hunters, Master Chief falls down and sees Cortana, which is weird since she died in the last game, but whatever. Anyway, it was like a weird vision type of thing, and in that vision, Cortana tells Chief to go to Meridian. So Chief decides that he should say screw his orders, he's going to Meridian to find Cortana. And the rest of the Blue Team decides sure, why not?
They won't court-martial all of us, right?
He tells Infinity he's going to Meridian to find her, but Infinity says they have another team ready to deal with her. But it doesn't matter, they're gonna go anyway. Then we cut back to Fireteam Osiris being that other team, but getting there way too late. Also, fun fact, Meridian was a planet that was glassed by the Covenant. It's cool to see a planet that has been glassed in the past and not in the process of getting glassed. The mission is pretty cool because we get to see a human colony that is not 100% on board with the UNSC, though they still need help dealing with alien/foreigner threats. Oh, also the mayor of this colony is actually an AI, which is neat. He sounds like he's going into rampancy though, just like Cortana did in Halo 4.
Why so many Spartans here? Why now? I'm unaware of other UNSC agents in our midst, but you have done right by my people so far. Have your look, but make it quick. Governor Sloan, out. I have welcomed you to my home. Do not be so rude as to make my health a point of conversation.
And after a lot of fighting with Forerunners and trying to save the colonists, we make it to Meridian Station. The next mission is actually a new type of mission for Halo, a gun down and walk around mission. I don't think it's actually called that, but it's what I like to think of them as. There are only 3 of these missions, and they consist of you walking around with your gun down. Basically, you just go over and talk to people to continue playing the game. I don't know why they were added, as they really slow down the campaign to a halt, but hey, at least they tried something new, even if it's not great. Anyway, after talking to a lot of colonists who didn't want to talk to us either, we figure out that Blue Team is on Meridian, and Fireteam Osiris goes to find them. Eventually, we make it into the mines and find a lot of Foreigner artifacts.
She calls the Guardians to serve her.
What was that?
Well, let's go find out. We're sitting ducks here. Agreed. Move!
Your presence in the Guardian's shelter is undesirable.
Are you the Guardian?
I am Warden Eternal. I stand in service to Cortana.
Here we actually have a boss fight, and don't worry, it's not like Halo 4's boss fights. We actually get to shoot and play the game, and Warden Eternal actually has a fair number of attacks, and is a pretty interesting fight. Anyway, we defeat him. Man, he seemed a lot cooler than to be just taken down in one fight. Further in, we find Blue Team and confront them. Though you may be wondering how this team of Spartan 4s have any chance at defeating Spartan 2s, let alone what may be the best team of Spartan 2s in the UNSC. Well, it turns out that Llodg has this device that will restrain any Mjolnir armor. And while the rest of Blue Team goes through the portal that is somehow there even though there shouldn't be a portal there yet, Master Chief and Llodg duel it out. And I know some people don't like this fight, but I think it's fine. And Llodg's punch even cracks Master Chief's faceplate. In a last ditch effort to restrain Chief, Llodg actually gets his own armor restrained, leaving the Master Chief to casually walk through the portal, leaving Fireteam Osiris stranded in this mine. Turns out this Foreigner thing that they are fighting on is a Guardian, and it wakes up and has Fireteam Osiris run for the exit. The Guardian waking up causes the whole planet to evacuate since it's about to jump. This level is pretty cool as it's the only time we ever get a Warthog run in this game, though it's not as cool as CE or 3's, but it's something. Oh, and you also get to fly on a space elevator, which is pretty cool. Fireteam Osiris is able to barely make it to their Pelican, and the Guardian makes a slip space jump. We then learn that there are Guardians on a bunch of planets, and Cortana decided to activate the one on Meridian first for a reason, so the Infinity decides to send Fireteam Osiris to St. Helios to find the Guardian and get on it before it activates and jumps. But we don't get to go there yet, as we get to play as Master Chief and Blue Team again. They are transported to a Forerunner planet called Genesis. As they are exploring and trying to contact Cortana, they find the Covenant, which for some reason are here. I guess they hopped onto one of the Guardians or something. Eventually we see more Guardians coming in, then we stumble across a ton of dead Covenant soldiers.
Identify yourself.
I am the Warden Eternal. I stand in defense of Cortana.
Oh, it's you again? I thought we already got rid of you. The Warden Eternal tells Blue Team that Cortana is too good for them, and after a lot of taunting, we fight him and defeat him again. Hopefully twice was enough. After defeating the Warden Eternal, Cortana finally makes contact.
Chief, hello?
Cortana.
John, you made it. Oh my... I can't believe you're here.
And honestly, it's really nice to hear Cortana talk to the Master Chief again. After half a game without her talking in our ears, it's nice to hear her back in her old role of guiding us through a level.
The controls for these Phaetons should be fairly intuitive.
As Forerunner systems go.
You'll figure them out.
Cortana leads us to where we want to go, and then we cut back to Fireteam Osiris going into St. Helios. Yep, we can't even get 2 missions with Blue Team back to back in this game. Well, at least we finally get to see the St. Heli home planet in a game after all these years. And I have to say, it's really cool. Seeing all this architecture of these ancient elites is so cool. St. Helios is also in the middle of a civil war, so it's not going to be easy to get to the Arbiter. But I love the setup for this planet. It makes so much sense after their whole race being ingrained within the Covenant and then the schism happening. Like, of course not everyone would want to go one way or the other. It's just so interesting. It's just a little disappointing we already took out the Storm Covenant's leader at the start of the game, but oh well. After fighting through a lot of Covenant, we finally make it to the Arbiter, who is thankfully still voiced by Keith David. We then meet with the Arbiter and tell him we are hunting the Master Chief, then Cortana tries to pull a Prophet of Truth from Halo 3.
Let him hunt. He'll never find us.
So now we have a race towards the Guardian Sunayon, but first we have to do a guns down walk around mission, which just has Halsey tell us what to do and Palmer lead us to a Pelican. Oh yeah, we have to find something to help us find the Guardian or something? I don't know, they should have just gone straight to Sunayon. But hey, at least the Kraken is here again, finally. And we finally get the chance to help the Arbiter take down the Kraken, and it's kind of lame. We kind of just go in and destroy it like in Halo 2 Scarab, but somehow it's less epic. I think only having one possibility of what to do really weakens it. So we destroy it and grab the Constructor. It's another guns down walk around mission. This is also the last of these missions, so I hope you enjoyed them. They've never returned after this game. Now we finally get the best mission in this game, the Battle of Sunayon. This is such a cool mission because we go deep into the St. Helios Civil War, and this is their last big battle at one of the most important St. Helios cities. We also get to fight side by side by the Arbiter, and he's gone. Yeah, it probably would have just been confusing if we fought elites against elites, who look very similar, but it's still a shame that he's just in our ear the entire mission. After a really cool fight through the city, we finally make it to the Guardian, and hey, the Arbiter is even here.
I'm the Warden Eternal. I stand in defense of
We don't have time to discuss it. Take him out, Osiris.
Oh, come on, not you again. How many times do we need to teach you this lesson? He's not even changing the encounter each time. It's the same fight over and over again. Anyway, we beat him. Hopefully the third time's the charm. Palmer helps us get onto the Guardian before it leaves, and this cutscene is the only cool thing she does throughout the campaign. I hope you guys enjoyed our time here. So now in the Guardian, Fireteam Osiris jumps with it onto Genesis. Here we get one of the coolest sections in the game. We have to run down the Guardian. The momentum in this section is just so cool with you shooting enemies as you run past them. Also, seeing the world from this sideways perspective is so cool. It really gives you a nice scale for how big the Guardians are. On the ground, we try to make contact with Blue Team and we meet the monitor of Genesis, Exuberant Witness. She's pretty cool and is against everything that Cortana is doing since she is the monitor of this installation. After fighting through a lot of Covenant who just happen to be near Guardians to come here, you make it to the gateway.
I have misjudged you lot.
Oh come on, we just fought you. At least they tried to switch things up by having you fight two at the same time, but for real, this is getting old. Okay, so we defeat them, and I'm not even gonna act like this is the last time we see Warring Eternal anymore. So we continue on and find Blue Team, and before we can figure out how to do anything to stop Cortana, Cortana teleports Blue Team away. Now we are on to Blue Team's final level. That's right, there's only 3 levels playing as Blue Team. Halo 5 has so many levels, but let's only give Blue Team 3 of them. Anyway, we go through with Warring Eternal taunting us and telling us Cortana shouldn't trust us and blah blah blah.
They will disperse your guardians.
Leave, Warden!
Oh, thanks Cortana, that was really helpful. Here we learn about Cortana's plan, basically to send the Guardians from here throughout the galaxy to police them. This is how Cortana is going to achieve peace throughout the galaxy. Anyway, Blue Team is going to stop her from doing that, which also means that the Warring Eternal was 100% right. And oh great, another Warring Eternal fight.
I will not allow them to get any closer to you.
I'm tired of your antics. Stand down!
Okay, once again, thank you Cortana, you saved us from having to fight them again, in what may be one of my favorite moments in this game. After fighting through loads of Prometheans, we have another Warden fight, and Cortana can get rid of all but 3 of them. And this fight is actually pretty hard. I mean, I went down a lot, and oh look, they never patched us out of the game. Yeah, you can just skip that whole fight, one of my favorite skips in Halo. Warden Eternal tries one more attack against Blue Team, sending out dozens of copies of himself. Everyone's worst nightmare. Wait, could she do that the entire time? Anyway, she disintegrates the Warring Eternal, and we never see him again. Master Chief tries to get Cortana to listen to reason, but she just won't and decides the best course of action is to trap Blue Team inside of a cryptum until her work is done, which is going to be like hundreds of years or something, which is like a crazy long time, and should have told Cortana that this wasn't the way it should be, but whatever. Also, if I cared more about the story, I would think this would be a really emotional moment, like I can see what they wanted it to be, but I just don't think it lands like they wanted it to. I do like the effort they put into it, like I don't completely hate this cutscene. Cortana seems genuinely hurt Chief won't stand by her, and I really like the hand Chief tries to give Cortana. Maybe in another timeline this was set up much better, and the cutscene really could have shined, but here it's just fine. And now we are on to the final level of Halo 5. Fireteam Osiris must rescue Blue Team and stop Cortana from releasing her Guardians throughout the galaxy. So we go around, and with Exuberant Witness's help, we destroy the Grav cores, so we can get up to where Blue Team is. But while we are doing it, Cortana taunts us and tries to get us to stop.
Keep up the pressure, Spartans!
Spartans!
We also learn that Cortana has gotten countless numbers of other human AI to join her, including Governor Sloan, which adds up considering how he helped the Blue Team, but hindered Osiris earlier in the game.
Who will accept my offer? Who will help me bring an everlasting peace to the galaxy?
This is Cromwell, shipboard AI, UNSC Melbourne's Pride. I am yours, Cortana.
Colonial Authority AI.
Governor Sloan, the free people of Meridian. I also stand with you, Cortana.
Those are the voices of your children calling to Cortana.
Lycus, shipboard AI, verdant simulator,
My allegiance is to I stand with you, Cortana.
Most of the AI likely joined Cortana to gain the immortality that Cortana seems to have, a cure from the timer of rampancy that they all currently have. Eventually we destroy all the Grav cores and make our way closer to the goal. After finding a ton of enemies, Cortana makes an announcement.
Humanity, Sangheili,
What does she want now?
Kigyar, Ongoy,
She's not talking to us. Exuberant, get us to the relay.
Sanshayun, Yunhet, almost done. Jural Hanai. All the living creatures of the galaxy, hear this message.
Huh, so that's how you pronounce the brute species name. Well, it only took 11 years for them to put it into the game. Also, it's weird they talk about the brutes despite them once again not being present in this game, though it would have been weird if they weren't mentioned. After fighting so many enemies, we make it down to the relay, and one of us has to break the core before Cortana can leave.
Keep moving.
My guardians are deployed.
Another pulse.
Soon peace will reign across the known galaxy.
Brace yourselves!
Hold on!
Keep moving. Almost there.
Stay behind me!
There! The relay! Destroy it! Just one more question before I go. Where's the Infinity? Why is she so difficult to see?
Yep, all you have to do here is walk. You don't even have to press anything.
Slipspace coordinates locked in. Cryptum secure. Goodbye, Mr. Locke.
But with that, Exuberant Witness gains control.
What is structures? This is a builder facility after all. I was installed by the builders. I serve the builders. No! Stop it! You took my installation. I will take something of yours.
Yep, right as Cortana was about to leave, we took Blue Team's Cryptum right out of her grasp and freed Blue Team. And this is the end of the game. It ends on a cliffhanger with all of our playable characters returning to St. Helios with Dr. Halsey and the Arbiter to figure out what to do next. But we don't see that. We don't even see Master Chief talk with the Arbiter. We also see Cortana start to enact her plan, and we see what the Guardians are able to do, which seems to be EMPing all technology. But the Infinity is able to make random jumps to stay out of Cortana's grasp, but yeah, that's it. A cliffhanger, which is just great. I honestly don't even know what to say here. Like, this wasn't where Halo 4's ending was heading towards, right? Like, okay, Halo 4 in itself didn't have too much of a blueprint of where to immediately go into the next game, but like, we had Spartan Ops with their characters and stories, but no, we had to immediately cool off Joel Mandama, you know, an interesting villain. We also could have had an interesting story about Dr. Halsey being against the UNSC, but instead we got Cortana resurrecting and being evil, somehow. The weird thing is that I didn't even realize until writing this script was that Osiris wasn't even going in to save Halsey for any reason other than that she knew Cortana was up to something, and everyone on the Infinity knows that, which is weird. Like, I always thought Halsey was afraid in the scene because of Palmer, because of what she accidentally did in Spartan Ops, but she's talking about Cortana. I don't think it's terrible that we have the player don't know what's happening, but it would have hit much harder if we had played more than 3 levels as the people going against the UNSC, and part of the reason they are going against them is that they are being kept in the dark, but no, they just like to keep the player in the dark. Now, I'm not 100% against Cortana being a villain if it was done well and made sense, but I don't think it was done well here. It just seems like Cortana came back, somehow. I know in the lore now she was in like the domain, but it could have been so many more interesting things, like a logic plague or something, or even had the Didact be the one controlling her to taunt the Master Chief. Yeah, that's right, I'm talking about the Didact because at the end of Halo 4, he didn't actually die. He can't be composed or something weird like that, but instead of using him in the game, we had a whole comic where Blue Team fought him and killed him by composing him. I thought the Didact couldn't be killed by being composed. Oh well, he's not in this game, even though he had some pretty cool concept art designs, but concept art doesn't mean he was actually going to be in the game. An artist just did a bunch of ideas, but he would have been cool to be in the game anyway. It would have been so much more interesting. At least we're still getting one last book about the Didact. They freaking had so many villains that could have been the main villain of this game, but no, just use Cortana. At least we got an interesting story involving the Arbiter, even though he was barely in it. The Sangheili Civil War is so interesting, and I wish it was the main focus of this game, or even any game. I mean, we even hear about the Didact's hand being an open rebellion, but we don't see any of that in the game. It just feels like the exact same Covenant that we saw in Halo 4, and it's super lame. Okay, now I should talk about the characters, because there are a ton of them in this game, and I don't care about most of them. First, Blue Team. It's cool that we finally see Blue Team in the game, but with only 3 levels, we really don't get much time for any of them to really shine. It's honestly a shame because they've been in Halo canon since before Combat Evolved, and this being their one and only game appearance is really lame. But it did remind me that Kelly has a British accent, so nice attention to detail.
Whoever they are, let's get to Meridian before they do.
Also, I wish Halo 5 was much more split evenly like Halo 2 was. Like, we got a couple missions as the Master Chief, then a couple missions as the Arbiter, but in this game it's just a Fireteam Osiris game with a bit of Master Chief, and it's really lame. Now, Fireteam Osiris, which is made up of mostly new characters. Almost all of them haven't even been in a game before, or since. But hey, for Llodg we got a whole live action series called Nightfall that followed one of his missions, and just like that show, he's pretty basic here. Vale and Tanaka got comics, I'm pretty sure. Vale was also in a recent book, which is cool, but like, I barely know who they are. Other than Elites and Tanaka being from a glass planet, which is pretty interesting, but they really don't do anything with that despite us going to a planet that's been glassed. I don't know anything about these characters. They just feel like they're there. I'm not even sure how these characters are even supposed to know each other. They feel like they're supposed to be this fire team that's been working together for a while, but we really have no idea if they have been. We get a few speeches that try to make it seem like they're all buddy-buddy, but I just don't think any of those speeches work here. These are new characters, and we need time to make sure that we can really care about them. Like in Halo 2 with the Arbiter, we were thrown into caring about him because he was accused of heresy, and we had a lot of missions dedicated to him and his eventual betrayal from his people. We got a story that focused on the Arbiter. Halo 5 could have been about any Spartan 4 team, and literally nothing would have changed. Their backgrounds ultimately do not matter to the story, unlike what we've seen work with previous Halo games. And Reach actually had a whole new cast of characters, but people still love Noble Team. And they don't really do anything all that special, but they feel like a real team. It probably works because Noble 6 is new to the team, but everyone else already knows each other. It also probably helps that Noble Team's story is just so tragic and works into the writing of everyone dying. We don't know them, and now never will. The only character that I really cared about in Fireteam Osiris is Buck, and that's because we've seen him in the whole previous game with him, and seen him on Reach. And he actually has some pretty funny lines throughout the game.
If you could clear out the land between where you are and town.
Of course, Governor.
Wow, pretty quick turnaround from get off my planet to, hey, can you help?
However, for those who refuse our offer and cling to their own ways.
Well, now she's talking about us.
Like, the other characters are fine, but there's a reason that they haven't had any fans clamoring to get them into the next Halo game. Also, fun fact, I think early in development, Buck was originally going to be Thorn from Spartan Ops, but obviously Buck is cooler, but it would have been cool to see Thorn again. Unless I'm forgetting anyone, I don't think there are any new characters within the UNSC that aren't a part of a fire team. It's nice to see Halsey in a mainline Halo game for more than a couple scenes. She doesn't do much, but still, it's nice to see her. Lasky is also pretty cool, but he doesn't do anything. Plumber has like one cool scene, and then it's just gone from the rest of the game. Man, they really just wanted to have these characters in this game, and just not do anything with them, huh? Here's where I'll talk about the main villains of the Storm Covenant, if there were any. They killed the main bad guy in the first mission, and despite there being a civil war, there was no head figure at the time to have us go against and hate. We've already done it before we even knew there was a civil war. The Covenant really shouldn't have been in this game other than those few missions on St. Helios. This is one of the only Halo games that actually has the Covenant be enemies in the final mission. You know, on Genesis, where they really shouldn't be, but they throw in a line of,
"The Guardian slipspace bubbles are bringing a considerable amount of rubbish from their origin planets."
Somebody ought to tell these guys they already lost the war.
Because they must have thought the foreigners weren't fun to fight against. Off the top of my head, the only game that has 3 factions that has both the Covenant and the 3rd faction in the final level is Combat Evolved, but it makes sense that they're all basically stuck on that Halo ring, and a human ship is very important to everyone there. Okay, on to the Forerunners. Morian Eternal is here? I honestly have no idea why he's on Cortana's side. I would think he wouldn't be, but he is. I even tweeted at him Xperia to try and figure out what his deal is, but he never answered. Most likely because even he has no idea what's up with the Morian Eternal. And why did we have to fight him so many times? He has such a cool scene in Reunion, but it doesn't work because we just fought him. This would have been cooler if we hadn't fought him a billion times. I have no clue what else I can say about Cortana, but she's here and got so many AI to join her. I still have no idea why Roland didn't join her. Like, does he not realize his own mortality yet? Did Cortana corrupt all these other AI to join her? Like, Governor Sloan makes sense as to why he joined her, because he's already failing. But since we don't see any of these other countless AI, it doesn't make sense as to why Roland wouldn't join her. Exuberant Witness honestly blew my expectations out of the water. I didn't expect to love her as much as I did. She was like a 3 for 3 Guilty Spark was nice. I really liked her gaining back control of Genesis. She's another character that I wish we got more time with because of the little we do see of her, she's great. She also has a line that I'm not sure if it's a throwback to Guilty Spark's Halo 3 quote, but it's so close that I hope it is because I love quoting Guilty Spark.
She has sealed my doors. No, unacceptable.
Unacceptable! Absolutely unacceptable!
And before I get off of talking about story stuff, I think I need to bring up the marketing of this game, because this is the first mainline Halo game that I was actually present for all the marketing. So the marketing basically had Chief go AWOL from the UNSC, something that does happen in Halo 5, except the reasons seem to be different. Like in Halo 5, it just kind of happens, and I get that they tried to make it seem like the UNSC were going behind Chief's back, but it's just not focused on at all to the point where I basically missed it until I was rewatching cutscenes to specifically write a script for it. Also, the marketing felt like they were hyping up this Chief versus Llodg thing, and then the game just has one fight with them, and the next time they see each other, they are all just buddy-buddy. Also, the game felt like it was catering to the marketing instead of the other way around. Like, oh, the Master Chief has a crack on his visor in the trailer, well, I guess we'll have to add a moment where his visor cracks. And in the marketing, they actually changed some missions, like in this E3 2015 demo of the Battle of Sunayon. It's actually very different to the final game. Like, they actually said Chief was at Sunayon, you can even see his assault rifle in the demo. But in the game, he never even thinks about going to St. Helios. I really enjoyed the first season of Hunt the Truth, but now it just feels so weird to think about. Halo 5's story is so different from Hunt the Truth that it feels like we're talking about two different things when discussing Halo 5's marketing and Halo 5 the game. Okay, that's enough talking about the story and characters. Now we can move on to something I actually quite enjoy about this game, the gameplay. They basically turned the thruster move from Halo 4 into the main gameplay mechanic of the game, and I really enjoy it. It makes combat flow a lot faster, and even gives you a lot more moves at your disposal. Though it doesn't really change the game too much, you can hit enemies harder now, though I do love dropping down to do a ground pound. That will always feel amazing. Also, I'm surprised that out of all the equipment, thruster's been the one to survive 4 Halo games. Technically you had a dodge roll and reach, but it works similar to the thrusters that I'm counting it. The levels are fairly linear, which is a shame because there really aren't any open areas like previous games, but they do try to make some diverging paths that can be accessed if you shoulder charge, but most of the time they just lead the weapon caches and don't give you anything else cool, which is sad. I do like the idea of having your fire team with you even if you're playing alone, and despite what you might think, this doesn't make the game easier. Now I don't think Halo 5 is a hard game, especially compared to Halo 2, but this game is kind of difficult because your allies never pick you up. Like, please Tanaka, take the time out of your day to come over here and pick me up so we don't lose the mission. Now your friends can also go down and you can pick them up, but if you don't, you lose them for a bit, but I'm not sure when they come back. Sometimes they suddenly show up out of nowhere. Most of the weapons from Halo 4 return in this game, well except for the remote detonator, you will be missed. A lot of the weapons are changed visually, you know, like Halo has always done. One of the most obvious changes was the battle rifle, which now has these horns. Oh yeah, every weapon now has something called Smart Link, which lets you zoom in with literally every weapon. And oh, it's actually beneficial to zoom in, so you should be doing it more than you aren't. I'm not totally against it, I just think it's a weird addition. Also, the most notorious change was the rocket launcher getting a complete redesign. Yep, the iconic weapon that has been in the game since 2001 got a redesign. And it's fine. Obviously I prefer the Spanker, but this isn't the worst thing ever done. The classic rocket launcher actually got added into Halo 5's multiplayer, but was never added into the campaign sadly. I do like how the Smart Link actually changes how the guns zoom in, like all the Forerunner weapons change shape, and it's genuinely my favorite thing ever. 343 also took the time to make the Forerunner weapons more different to their Unit C counterparts. Now they actually feel different. I really like how the bullet shot is a 3-round burst. I also liked using the scout shot in this game a whole lot more. They also changed the pulse grenades into the splinter grenades. I've grown to like the pulse grenades from Halo 4, but I also really like the splinter grenades, especially since it can EMP vehicles. My favorite new weapons has to be the Plasma Caster and the Hydra. Both are similar, but the Plasma Caster allows you to shoot plasma grenades, either one at a time or in a big cluster, to really do some damage. The Hydra is able to lock onto enemies and shoot them with missiles, which I really like. And my favorite weapon throughout Halo 5 has to be the Carbine and DMR. I just love how they play. They feel so nice to headshot enemies. And this game actually has my favorite Carbine in all of Halo. They've also added variants in some of the weapons in this game, like Linda's sniper rifle Norfang, which in multiplayer is a really powerful sniper, though it's obviously weaker in the campaign, which is a shame. There are a few of these better weapons throughout the campaign, but they are few and far between. Also, no new weapons that were added into Halo 5's multiplayer were ever added into the campaign, which is a big shame. Sadly, after Halo 4, the assault rifle does not sound as amazing as it did in that game. And they changed the Kneeler design, which is just a bad move. Also, vehicles return with some being retooled like the Mantis having lock-on now. As far as I know, the only new vehicle in this game is the first and only Forerunner weapon we have in the series with the Phaeton. It's like a Hornet from Halo 3, but with a boost and only carries one driver. It does have a cool get-in animation though. There are also a few Ultra vehicles, which are just powered up silver vehicles that are pretty cool. I'm pretty sure the only ones we see in this game are the Ghost and Wraith, but still pretty cool. Now for the greatest new addition, you can press the jump button to switch seats in any vehicle with multiple seats. Okay, maybe this is more helpful for someone like me with no friends, but I'm glad it's in this game and became a mainstay for the series. It makes using Warthogs so much more manageable. Can you imagine that I almost forgot to talk about the enemies? Because they're just kind of there in Halo 5. Everyone from Halo 4 returns, and we have one new addition with the Forerunner soldiers. They kind of act as the elites of the Forerunners and took the Knights' place. So the Knights now act more like hunters where you have to hit them in specific places if you want to do a lot of damage, and it's pretty cool. But overall, I feel like the unity the Forerunners had in 4 is just gone in this game. I don't know, the enemy design just isn't great overall, especially for the Forerunners. Well, at least the soldiers can actually use vehicles this time around. Also, this is the last game with the Prometheans. I wish they were a bit better, but I'm still sad to see them go. They could have been really cool enemies. The Covenant have had one change that I really like. The hunters can't be stuck from the front, and now bounces off their shields. Also, there are collectibles throughout the level, with different skulls obviously returning, but now instead of terminals, there are tons of data pads thrown about the levels, where you can listen to them in audio form. The data pads are the only collectibles you can find in Guns Down Walk Around missions, so if you're going for skulls, you can skip those missions. Talking about the Guns Down Walk Around missions, you can find a lot of funny little Easter eggs thrown in here. Honestly, a lot of the missions have them, but I specifically remember the soccer ball on Meridian's level. Okay, now I'll talk about the graphics and overall look of this game. I think the game looks fine overall. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the art style of this game, but in Halo 4, I liked it, but something about Halo 5 just makes me not like it as much. I think a lot of the texturing and materials just don't look great in this game. A lot of it makes the game look like toys. I was a big fan of Master Chief's armor in 4, but here it just looks like plastic to me. Now in the pre-rendered cutscenes it actually looks pretty good, but in game it just doesn't look all that great. I think it's missing the darker greens but shininess that was present in Halo 4. Overall, I'm not a huge fan of how characters look in this game. Like, I think Blue Team is fine. I actually really like Kelly's armor design, and even if Linda's helmet is a bit on the nose for a sniper, I still really like it. Fireteam Osiris' designs are just fine in my opinion. I actually do like Locke's design a lot, but Veil is just okay. And I barely even register that Tanaka's armor is something different from the basic default armor design. I do like that they had Buck keep his ODST helmet though. It would have been weird if he didn't have it. Now, the Arbiter has had a different armor design for every appearance in every game he's appeared in, and I really like his armor here. He looks really good in gold, and the design of the armor is just really cool in my opinion. Also, in some of the concept art, he had a cape, and I really wish we had that in the final game. Capes are just so cool with armor under them. And I really like that he has his own type of energy sword with a Prophet's Bane. First, the name is really cool, and I just love the deep orange and how it's much bigger than the other energy swords. I think it's really nice that characters get their own distinct weapons. Also, I'm not the biggest fan of Cortana's design in this game. With 4 being the first campaign that I played on my own, I'm really attached to the designs there. And I think Cortana looked really good. Her motion capture on her face was just perfect. But in Halo 5, I don't know, something just looks off. I do like her outfit though, I think it makes her look more powerful. But yeah, something about her face just doesn't look right to me. Honestly, I thought the faces were hit or miss. Like, Bucks looks exactly like Nathan Fillion to me, but Vale didn't really look like her voice actress Laura Bailey at all, which is weird. Maybe it's because I've seen her a lot more that I can tell that she's different, but I also feel like I've seen Nathan Fillion a lot to know what he'd look like. Maybe brought in the big bucks for this game, so they gave him a better motion capture. The Guardians have a pretty cool overall design, but I'm not the biggest fan of the face. It just looks a little goofy, but I can't deny how menacing they look just floating in the air. If you've seen my other videos, you know I love to talk about the skyboxes, and Halo 5s are hit or miss. I really like some of them. I love the deep colors that they use, and they kind of look really good compared to the rest of the game. But some of them just look terrible, like in the last Blue Team mission. I don't even know what I'm looking at, this just looks low res. I don't know, I think some of the skyboxes are really nice, even if there isn't a Halo ring in the sky for you to look at. Okay, and now onto the music, and I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fan of the music, and I haven't listened to the soundtrack too much. It's actually my least listened to soundtrack out of all the Halo games so far, but while playing the game, I actually really enjoyed a fair number of the tracks, the Trials being one of my personal favorites since the game has come out. But Blue Team is also really good. It's reminiscent of 117 from Halo 4. The whole soundtrack sounds like a movie soundtrack rather than a specific Halo one, but I still really enjoy it. There are moments where it sounds definitively Halo to me, and that's what matters. A lot of the sound effects in this game sound very game-like. In Halo 4 they went for a more realistic military sound design, but in this game a lot of them just sound so much like a game and not very memorable. When you get a headshot there's this popping noise. The voice acting in this game is really good. Despite the script being less than great, the voice actors do a really amazing job. I love how everyone comes back: Steve Downes, Jen Taylor, Keith David, even Nathan Fillion. This is like an all-star cast for Halo, and I think everyone does a great job. I'm already a fan of Laura Bailey and Travis Willingham, and I think they do well, but nothing special from them as Vale and Fred, sadly. There weren't a lot of one-liners in this game.
Negative infinity.
Okay, I meant good one-liners. But there was one standout section, that being the Arbiter's speech.
Hunt them to the last. The day we extinguish the Covenant's light.
Also, the dialogue in this game is a bit weird. There were multiple instances of characters giving exposition and then being cut off at the end of the level. Like, was I going too fast, or...
After the crash here, I didn't think I'd see.
Okay, now onto the little things I really liked. I really like how this game feels like a callback to previous games, like Master Chief's vision in the second mission feels like a callback to those Cortana moments in Halo 3, or the enemies caged in the last mission being like Halo 2's last mission. I'm not sure if they meant it, but I really like it. I also really like how they gave us female elites in this game, like it was bound to happen eventually, and I have to give Halo 5 credit for doing it, especially since it's the only game to have it.
Arbiter's victories and the death of Jewel and Dama.
Also, something I'm a little disappointed about is when a character is talking, in Halo 4, there were multiple instances of you seeing Cortana visually talking, kind of like it's Metal Gear Solid, and it was a nice visual, and there was a couple points where they just put like the name of who's speaking so you know, but no visuals. But in Halo 5, it's only that, and it's really lame. I think it would have been nice to see Cortana talk to you, especially when you first see her in Blue Team's second mission. It could have been a nice instance of, oh yeah, this is who we're talking with. The hunters are really cool and kind of creepy in this game. Like, you can see the Legolo worms actually moving and forming hunter bodies, which is so cool. I also love this grunt chant to soothe the Guardian. It's such a cool lore and world building moment. I just love it so much. I really like the dichotomy between Blue Team always keeping their helmets on and Fireteam Osiris taking them off. I think it's nice to see Spartan 2s always having their helmets on like we've seen with Chief. I like how Cortana will always refer to Llodg as Mr. Llodg instead of Agent Llodg. It's just a little thing, but I think it's kind of funny.
I wouldn't ally myself too closely with Dr. Halsey, Mr. Llodg.
Now, I did a poll to see what you guys thought about Halo 5's campaign, and yeah, this is about what I expected, though a few more voted that they liked the game than I would have thought. And yeah, Halo 5 Guardians is definitely a game. Not a great one, but not totally terrible. There are a lot of little things to like about this game, but the weird story just makes me not enjoy this game as much as I wish I could. Cortana being the main villain is so weird, especially after she died in the last game. We have no good reason as to how her resurrection happened, and it's super unsatisfying. Master Chief only being in it for 3 levels is such a weird choice. I almost wish they didn't have him in any and have it be a mystery as to what he's up to and why he went AWOL for us to figure out. They could have even released DLC to have these missions be playable with Chief and Blue Team, but oh well. We didn't even get any Spartan Ops in this game, despite desperately needing it, unlike Halo 4. Like, come on, why end it on a cliffhanger if you're not going to immediately jump in and have more missions for us to play? But yeah, those were my overall thoughts on Halo 5, and man, I had a lot of them. Let me know what your thoughts on Halo 5 are. I'd love to hear it if you'd enjoyed the game, but even if you didn't enjoy the game, please let me know. I love hearing people's thoughts on these games, especially when it's different opinions to mine. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the video, have a good day, and goodbye!